On the radio, an announcement is made. Now for the weather. Tonight's heavy rain will last for at least a week. The observatory has issued a warning to everyone that this rain might reach a red level of risk. At this moment, someone has their shop open in the middle of this storm. While putting some books on the shelf, they think, what a strong rain. It looks like I won't have any customers again. But what if someone forgot their umbrella? Could they need shelter? Could these small acts of kindness and love bring me a bit of money? No, I can't think like that. What I need is just the gratitude of my customers. Of course, if they are moved by my kindness and hospitality and maybe pick up 1 or 2 books, that would be fantastic. Meanwhile, under the moonlight, a fight is happening. A sword flashes and a girl already cuts off a guy's arm. But 2 more are running towards her. She raises 2 fingers to stop the knife, grabs it, returns it to the second guy's head, teleports behind the next one, and grabs his neck to finish him off. But the girl takes a stab in the hip and starts painting the wet ground with blood. Damn, this is finally over, but it feels like I broke 3 or 4 ribs. I just need some time to recover. Even with my cursed blood, this is still going to take an hour. I need to find a place to stay or I'll be in trouble. Time. I need time. She walks down the street. Upon seeing the bookstore open, she wonders something running in the middle of this rain. What's this? Of all the stores in the area, the only one open is a bookstore. Why are they open in this weather? Is this a coincidence or a trap? Well, it doesn't matter. I need time to recover. I need to hide and buy as much time as possible. She enters the shop. The little bell rings. The protagonist glances sideways and says, "Welcome, I was expecting you." The beautiful customer who braved the rain. Upon seeing her style and condition, the protagonist already thinks, for sure, this one has a lot of stories to tell. If that's the case, he'll activate therapist mode to try to make some sales. He quickly offers, "I have a warm towel here for you. Would you like to dry off, or would you prefer to warm up with some tea first?" She looks a bit confused, thinking, expecting me? How does he already have everything I need here? Did he know about my wounds? A normal shop wouldn't be this prepared. This can't be a coincidence. This guy is hiding something. She thanks him, saying the rain is really heavy, while wondering, what organization is this guy from? Could he be from the Secret Tower of Instruments, a Society of Truth? Or maybe Order of Walpurgis Night? In any case, she concludes, this guy isn't a normal bookstore owner. She then asks, "You said you were expecting me?" The protagonist replies, "Of course. Sometimes destiny can be magical. 2 strangers meeting like this out of nowhere. You seem to be in a complicated situation, don't you?" The girl feels unsettled, thinking, oh my god, how does he know that? But in reality, the protagonist just made a basic suggestion, something therapists often do. Since she responded positively, he thinks, perfect, this will be my chance to heal this wound and deepen our connection. She then responds, I'm having some problems that are really driving me crazy. Still a bit unsure, she thinks. She can't tell if this guy is an ally or an enemy. For now, the best thing she can do is figure out his identity. As he prepares tea, he comments, "You're saying you have a problem? If my guess is correct, it has something to do with relationships." Once again, it's just a vague therapy technique. He says something broad to see if she reveals more information. And she's there, completely shaken, thinking, what is he talking about? If he's not trying to confuse me, does he already know about my relationship with the White Wolf and the problems I'm facing? The protagonist pulls out a chair and asks, why don't you sit here first? But she's still very insecure. How does he know about all my issues with the White Wolf? This just happened. It doesn't even make sense. Did he know everything from the start? She responds, I was betrayed. Absolutely everything is that guy's fault. The appearance of the magic mirror. It's an egg of a magical beast that can attract the souls of others. And because of that, years of companionship were traded for greed and profit. They even went as far as using their own group to kill former allies. How pitiful. The protagonist thinks this is about a romantic relationship involving betrayal and such and reflects, well, since the betrayal was so brutal, it would be easier to get some money out of her. He takes the cup and says, every story has 2 sides. Sure, you were betrayed, but wasn't this the perfect chance to discover their true identity? She thinks, apparently he really did know, but he's right. If they're like that, it was only a matter of time before something revealed their greedy side. Then she says to the protagonist, you're right, but I'm lost now and hurt by all this betrayal. What's the point of ignoring all their evil deeds? The protagonist tries to understand. Wait, lost and hurt? Okay. The guy who betrayed you probably hurt you deeply emotionally. I see. In that case, let this silver tongue convince you. He says, of course there's a point to knowing all this. Now that you know what's real and what's not, you won't show mercy to those who hurt you, not even to those who were once close to you. She begins to think she understands everything, thinking, now I get it. That's why he was waiting for me. He wants to use me as a weapon against the hunters. He's so cunning and elegant, and you must hate the hunters. I know. The shopkeeper must be a high-level dark mage. She then asks, what do you think I should do? And he replies, since you've lost your humanity, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, you don't need to hold back against people like them anymore. This is the protagonist's third technique, a direct suggestion. He thinks she's suffering because she was betrayed by a boyfriend and doesn't know what to do. And he's basically telling her, put an end to this once and for all. But the situation is quite different. And she responds, what do you mean by losing my humanity? I'm not mentally prepared for that yet. The protagonist realizes, So it's not exactly that, but I think I was close enough. Wait, I'll solve this now, he thinks. What she really needs is this book here. Good thing I have Rousseau's Confessions to give her. This kind of dense reading is perfect for someone who's lost. But when she looks at the book, it's not Confessions by Rousseau. Instead, the book is titled Blood and the Beast, and she wonders, Blood and the Beast? I've never heard of this. Why is he giving me this book out of nowhere? When she touches the book, she falls into an illusion. The book starts to bleed, and she's captured by a vision. Inside, she sees a creature rushing toward her to bite her. She feels a power of lycanthropy, the power of beings that transform into wolves. Frightened, she closes the book and starts thinking. Lycanthropy is the power contained in blood. The strength of the hunter comes from the blood they obtain from dream beasts. They inject some of that blood into their bodies, and the stronger the beast's blood, the stronger the hunter becomes. But they all fall because of the side effects. However, this guy here seems to be in control of the blood. If that's the case, he can completely reverse the structure of the powers. She stares at the protagonist and he says, "This, you see, you need to do this. Not out of regret, but because you need to face yourself honestly again." And the girl, no matter how tough she seems, is standing there. A girl with a broken heart is always so sentimental. All he can do is offer comforting words and recommend a good book. My God, it looks like she's about to cry. Let me say a few words to help her confidence. Then he reads a quote from the book to her. "When the last trumpet sounds, I will appear before the judge of sovereignty with this book in my hand, and proclaim to him loudly, 'Yes, I acted. These are my desires, for all creatures have their primal longings.'" He looks at her and asks, "Don't you think so too?" He's thinking, "Perfect. Comforting someone is my specialty. Trust me. Confront this and you'll feel reborn." It's the protagonist's fourth technique, the conclusive decision. After the client has shown their emotions, you just need to guide them onto the right path and make them feel confident enough to solve their problems. He raises his cup, saying, "A toast to a new tomorrow." She already thanks him, all happy. "Thank you for guiding me. I'll follow all of this very well." And she drinks the entire cup, but it was just boiling water. He thinks, "My dear, why are you drinking boiling water? It was just to warm you up a bit." And why does her body seem perfectly fine? Could she have a legendary iron body? Strange. To close the deal completely, he pulls out the registration card and says to her, "Write your name here." She hesitates, thinking she's signing a pact with something she doesn't understand. The protagonist notices her name is Ji Jixu and remembers a millionaire named Ji Banan. Then he thinks, could this girl be the daughter of a rich man? Looks like I hit the jackpot. This could lead to... this could mean great profits. Let's think carefully. I need to plan this long term. He looks at her and says, "The rental period is 1 month. However, you can extend it for up to a week. This rain is very strong, so I'll lend you an umbrella. Remember to bring it back next time you come." She takes the umbrella and thanks him for his help, saying, "Can I know a little more about you?" The protagonist feels a bit flustered, thinking, "I don't remember flirting with her. I didn't do that right." "Well, I suppose not, so I'll answer honestly." And he says, "My name is Lin Jie, and I'm just a charitable bookstore owner." She leaves, thinking, it seems he's not willing to reveal his true identity, but he does seem to be on my side. "Goodbye, Mr. Lin. Have a good night." The protagonist simply tells her to be careful and come back anytime. She walks out and he thinks, "Once again, I did a good job. Helping others every day really makes you feel good. Maybe that's why I was transported to this world. Let me tidy up this place and prepare for the next customer, if there's any today." Meanwhile, she's walking home in the rain thinking, that guy is so cruel. Does he want me to deal with the trader before the deadline? Come back anytime. What does he mean by that? But then someone approaches her, holding a silver cane. She sees the silhouette of a man in the rain with his hand bandaged and a book in his other hand. The scene cuts to the protagonist placing a book on the shelf, one he wrote himself, Rituals and Folklore. Author, Lin Jie. He looks at the book thinking, looking at this brings back so many memories. Since I was transported to this world, I've been living in this city called Nukin. It's been 3 years. Then we see that in 2017, the protagonist was a folklore professor at a university. A girl asks, "Mr. Lin Jie, we're closing. Aren't you going home?" He replies, "No, I'll stay here a little longer to read. You can leave first, don't worry. I'll lock everything up, okay?" She thanks him and leaves, saying, "See you tomorrow, Mr. Lin Jie." As she leaves, she meets another girl in the hallway who says, "Wow, it's late. Is Mr. Lin Jie still there?" The first girl responds, "Yeah, he's still there. He loves books way too much. I heard he's a crazy collector. He spends his entire salary just to buy books." The protagonist, hiding behind the bookshelf, hears them talking and sighs. Shortly after, he enters a room, and man, there's an active pentagram in there. Something peculiar is going on. He steps into the center of the circle and says, "Perfect. The ritual preparations are now complete. I know fulfilling this wish is nothing but a dream. But what if there's even the slightest hope? I'll do whatever it takes." He activates the power of the circle and says, "Please, grant me all the books in this world." Guys, this caught me off guard. The protagonist literally performed a ritual to obtain every book in the world. However, nothing happens, and he's left standing there looking foolish, thinking, apparently it didn't work. I should have known nothing would happen. But behind him efficiently, there's a giant worm staring at him while he stands there, lost in thought. A magical circle that grants any wish. Yeah, right. It doesn't work. Then he hears something behind him. When he turns around, he finds himself in a bloody world with a gigantic door. It's at that moment that the protagonist becomes certain. If he opens that door, he'll achieve his dream, and the price will be never returning to Earth. But he doesn't hesitate for a second and steps through. After passing through the door, he arrives in the city of Nukin. Thinking about this, he says, "Time flies. Living here isn't so different from before." But thinking more logically, shouldn't there have been some kind of price for that ritual? Something coming to collect? All my days here are so slow and peaceful. I don't mind. I can just keep infinitely updating my bookshelf and have access to every book in the world. Besides, helping my customers feels so good. The pleasure of being a teacher of life. Has it been a while since I had a customer? It really has been a while since I had a customer. My conversational skills haven't diminished one bit. I'm certain I made that girl happier today. Back to our little vampire. She's standing still while the man just walks past her, and she's thinking, "I can't do anything. My hand won't even move." The man glances back at her and thinks, "So it's that book. What a lucky girl." She feels as if her body is completely frozen. She looks back and the man is already gone. She collapses to the ground, sweating, and says, "It's him. It can't be. Wasn't he?" The scene cuts to the man now standing in front of the protagonist's shop. He enters and the protagonist says, "Whoa, is that old wild? Are you here to return the book?" The man walks straight toward the protagonist, smiling, and says, "Mr. Lin, why don't you call me by my real name?" He responds, "Of course, Mr. Wild." And old Wild says to him, "I noticed you got a new customer. You even gave her that popular book." The protagonist replies, "I just thought it would be very fitting for her." Weld responds, "Okay, fair enough. Here's the book you gave me." And the protagonist replies, "I told you, an old man shouldn't be reading such a complex book. You were just going to get more confused. Why didn't you believe me?" Wild answers, "Yeah, I only realized that after I had read it. That book is way too profound for me. It feels like a vast world of its own. With my limited knowledge, I can't even begin to imagine what kind of person produces such monumental work." Outside, our warrior is standing there thinking, "I knew it. It's the faceless black scale, Frank Weld, a destructive dark mage. In this world, there's a classification called APDI to categorize creatures that are abnormal, petrifying, destructive, and indescribable. Weld is known by the title Faceless Black Scale, and he's a destructive ranked dark mage. Obviously, his most striking feature is the mask everyone recognizes, not to mention half of his blood belongs to serpents, so part of his body resembles a snake. Once, he single-handedly fought against 10 holy knights of the tower. He destroyed an entire area of 10,000 square kilometers. That's how he earned the title of destructive. There are barely 10 destructive ranked beings in the entire Nikon region. Even more so in Azir, there are fewer than 100 of them on this planet. To think he can just casually chat a mutant of this level, it seems I met someone extraordinary today. Back to the protagonist, he's saying to Weld, "You seem to be in a bad mood today. If you need help, don't hesitate to ask me." He knows that Old Wild is one of the few regulars who always visits his little bookstore. It's almost part of the man's routine to stop by, thinking, "Well, he must be a lonely old man or have an empty home. He really needs companionship." As far as I know, he has 2 children, but neither treats him very well. Not to mention, his wife left him and all of his colleagues are afraid of him because of his appearance. That's why he's always alone. Such nostalgia remembering when I first met him 2 years ago. Then we flash back to when Wild first arrived and the protagonist welcomed him. Just by looking at the man's style, he thought, "Well, my instincts tell me this guy has a story. Judging by the quality of his clothes, he's definitely well off financially. He's even hiding his face. Must be a fan of being stylish. Maybe he needs some spiritual help. He must be a scholar. Looks like I have the chance to heal his soul. If I handle this well, I might even gain a regular customer." Weld approaches him and says, "You're the shopkeeper here, right? Do you collect old books? This one has been with me for some time. It might have some value for collectors." The protagonist replies, "Of course, this shop handles all kinds of services. Hold on a moment. Meanwhile, you can have some tea, okay?" The protagonist wants to use the tea to break the ice, but Wild says, "No need. This old face of mine scares people and I don't want to cause you any trouble." The protagonist responds, "You're a guest. Why would I be scared? Besides, focusing on appearances instead of the heart is nonsense, don't you think?" Wild replies, "Well said. In that case, I'll accept your offer. And of course, thank you for the tea." The protagonist thinks, "Mamma mia. That mask of his is more peculiar than scary. Looks like he's using it to cover some kind of wound. Well, whatever. I don't have time to dwell on that." Taking a look at the topics in the book, it seems he's been researching a lot of obscure languages. Looks like he's someone interested in diverse languages. So I'll focus on that first. Wild thanks him for the tea, and the protagonist says, "So this book you brought appears to deal with some uncommon languages, even dying ones. The words almost seem to have some kind of incredible magic to them." Wild is shocked, thinking, "Wait a second. Did he sense the magic in my manuscripts? No way. I prepared all of this with my own exorcisms. Not even a destructive level mutant could sense anything in this. Since I walked in here, this guy has been treating me way too calmly. Who is this guy? I can't let my guard down. Even though I can't sense any aura from his body, this guy isn't normal. He looks at the protagonist and says, when it comes to linguistic studies, I do have some knowledge. Have you, by any chance, done research in this area? Or could you teach me a thing or two, if you don't mind? The protagonist replies, well, I haven't done any formal studies, but I've read some books on the subject. And I do have a few books with me. Thinking, I knew it, he's a professional scholar who spends all his time alone. He can't stand the loneliness anymore or being misunderstood by people. In this case, I need to offer him a new direction. He hands Weld a book titled Wen Townies, a Chinese dialect known for its extreme difficulty. The protagonist thinks, you said you're a linguist? Let's see if you can figure this one out. But of course, Weld immediately drops his cup and stares at the book, thinking it's completely different. He says, demonic language? This really is something sinister. Man, why are the covers of the books this guy is always so wild? The protagonist is there, celebrating. It worked. I'm amazing. And Wild says, this is a rarity. Where did you find it? The protagonist is momentarily speechless, thinking, I can't say I brought this book from China. You wouldn't even know what China is. So he tells a small lie, saying that the book is from a splendid and ancient civilization, one of the rare languages. Wild ponders over his words. Wait, splendid and lost civilization? Why does he talk about it with such inspiration? It seems like this guy has some kind of connection to that place. Fascinating. What kind of terrifying creature is this man? The protagonist extends his hand and asks, so how should I address you, my customer? Wild straightens up and replies, my name is Frank Wild. There's nothing remarkable about me worth mentioning. But may I know your name? My name is Lin Jie. I'm just the owner of a humble bookstore. No need to be so formal, Mr. Wild. This all happened 2 years ago. Now we're back in the present, where the protagonist noticed Wild's foul move and asked if something was wrong. Weld replies it's nothing serious. He's just stuck in his research thanks to the demon language book he borrowed 2 years ago. He managed to find a new direction, but he needs more clues like the ones in that book. The protagonist thinks, he calls it demon language. He's so honest. Truly, he has the dry humor of a scholar. The protagonist says, so you want a similar book? The scene flashes back 40 years. Weld is speaking to a god seated on a massive throne, saying, die. This is the power of mages. A mage is someone who controls the power of words and languages. White mages write spells and black mages recite incantations. As a black mage, if you can find the sound of your soul and create your own language, you will reach the path of indescribable power. Wild awakens from this memory as the protagonist asks again, so you want a similar book? Wild replies, yes. This book is far too difficult and seems to be part of a single language. It's deeply connected to my culture, but I need something that can help me understand it better. The protagonist thinks, wait a moment. Wild reflects, Mr. Lin never changes. He's always helping others. He's such a generous person. 2 years ago, when I lost my fight with Joseph and my path became unclear, it was he who guided me. Not to mention, he gave me a rare book without hesitation. He can even completely conceal his power from someone of destructive rank. Sigh, this man must be some kind of hermit, a master at an indescribable level. I finally found some clues to forbidden powers thanks to the knowledge in that book, all because of this omniscient master and scholar. I need to show my gratitude to this man. The protagonist pulls a book off the shelf, Rituals and Folklore by Lin Jie, and says, sorry for keeping you waiting. It might be a bit presumptuous of me, but I think this one is perfect for you. Wild stares at it. What is this? The protagonist replies, the truth must be told. I'm quite confident in this area. Wild picks up the book Cult of Ghouls by Lin Jie and thinks, what is this? Did you write this? The protagonist humbly says, it's just a simple work of mine. Wild thinks, how unexpected. I've heard of the Faith Worship Society, the Moon Worship Society, and the Plague Worship Society, which exists within the High Walls. These are the 3 main religions most people follow, but Cult of Ghouls, I've never heard of it, especially with this sinister aura. Whoever wrote this is deeply twisted. Could Mr. Lin be trying to create his own religion? He looks at the protagonist and asks, is this your field of research? Rituals? The protagonist replies, yes, it's one of my fields of research. You could say it changed my destiny, but I wrote it a long time ago. It's hardly worth mentioning anymore. Will thinks, a long time ago? Changed his destiny? Wait, I'm starting to understand. Mr. Lin is a scholar of forbidden topics, and surely this kind of thing would alienate others. That's why he's in hiding. He examines the book and says, this book seems to be handmade. The protagonist confirms, yes, I had an accident back then and couldn't publish it in time, so I only have this copy. But deep down, he's a bit regretful. If he hadn't come to this world, he might have published that book and earned a title in folklore. He slams the table, frustrated by the memory, and says, well, since we know each other, I'll lend you this book. Of course, I can recommend others if you don't trust me. Weld hesitates, thinking, well, he's giving me something so precious. Weld thanks the protagonist for his generosity, saying, it will be an honor to read this great work of yours. But curiosity gnaws at him. What could he possibly want from me? A book so valuable. He says to the protagonist, I imagine this must be the work of your life. To give something so important to an old man like me. I feel a bit lost, I must admit. Weld is confused. Is he trying to use me as some sort of test subject for this book? The protagonist, slightly embarrassed, thinks, my goodness, this guy is so kind. He was all excited until I mentioned it's a one-of-a-kind copy. Let me put his mind at ease. He walks over to Wild and places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, saying, Mr. Wild, I'm certain you will add even more value to this book. Only when someone reads my work does my research begin to hold any meaning. And honestly, this book isn't that important to me right now. I already have an entire forest of knowledge. Besides, I can rewrite it any time. The knowledge in my brain can never be stolen. They can only take away fame and money from me, which, by the way, are the most useless things in my eyes. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Wild? Wild is left speechless, unsure of how to respond. Meanwhile, the protagonist is beaming internally, thinking, that's it, Mr. Wild. Here's a little figurative slap on the cheek for you. This is my secret to healing souls. I'm sure an old man like him, with his way of thinking, still desires fame and fortune. But right now, that would only harm his mental health. I'm giving him a chance to focus more on others and heal his own wounds. You get what I'm aiming for here? Wild stands and says, I understand. Thank you for your teachings. Thinking, fame and money are useless. Is he warning me not to tell anyone about this book? Does he truly disdain fame and wealth? But the protagonist adds, that said, if you think it's right, I'd be happy if you recommended it to others. Wild replies, I see. I'll do my best. It seems this is the price Mr. Lin wants me to pay for this book. He wants me to help spread the knowledge of his words. However, I must distribute it without revealing his identity. First, I need to study it in detail and pass it on verbally to others. I must be cautious so no one uncovers his secret. He then thanks the protagonist again and says, thank you for all your guidance. This here is just a small token of my gratitude. I hope you'll accept it. Wild hands him a massive stone creature. The protagonist, startled, asks, is this a gargoyle? Wild explains it's not particularly valuable, especially compared to the book. However, he insists that the protagonist accept it as a sign of his deep gratitude. He shares that the gargoyle was a gift from his master when he graduated. My master spoke highly of this creature. It has incredible magical resistance, tough skin, and sharp teeth and claws. But its best trait is that it can sense murderous intent. When it comes to combat, this thing can rival any elite knight. The protagonist stares at the gargoyle, thinking, wow, how can he say this isn't valuable? It's so masterfully crafted it almost seems alive. Regardless of its price, this is priceless to me. I've heard things like this repel evil spirits. I bet this gargoyle has a similar function. Well, since it's from Mr. Wild, I have to accept it. He says to Wild, wow, this is definitely to my liking. It's a beautiful piece of art. I'm looking forward to seeing what you bring me next time. Wild thanks him. Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. But inwardly, Wild is thinking, it seems he wasn't even fazed by its power. What kind of person is Mr. Lin? Truly, he must be extraordinary. Wild departs, but his thoughts linger. Of course, it's just a panic-level gargoyle. A single book from Mr. Lin must be worth 1,000 of these creatures. And yet, he was so benevolent, even praising it just to care for my feelings. Mr. Lin, I'll return soon. Next time, I'll bring you a gift that will truly satisfy you. Something indescribable in value. The protagonist, waving goodbye, replies cheerfully, I can't wait. See you next time. As Will disappears into the rainy night, the shop closes. The protagonist stares at the gargoyle, thinking, wonder if old Wild will bring me another one of these to make a pair. He tilts his head, inspecting the creature closer. Is this a guy or a girl? Doesn't matter. It's super intimidating either way. It's going to look fantastic right here in the shop. Well, that's probably it for today. Being a good person really does bring good luck. As he turns to his desk, he notices ink moss climbing up its surface. The moss begins to write. How long has it been since we last met? The protagonist freezes for a moment, but quickly recognizes it. It's undoubtedly the same being that brought him into this world. It's been 3 years since he last heard from this entity. He immediately responds, does your appearance mean it's finally time for me to pay the price? Tell me what you want me to do. He remembers how this existence fulfilled his greatest dream, and nothing bad has ever happened because of it. Surely this creature must be benevolent, like a magical genie. Please don't ask for something too outrageous, he silently prays. The moss writes back, you've already paid the price. That's why I've awakened. The protagonist tilts his head in confusion. Wait, I completed it just by asking Wild to recommend my book to someone else? The moss writes, yes. Still perplexed, he asks, so the price I had to pay was for others to recommend a book I wrote. Does this benefit you in some way? Yes. Well then, no problem. I've done my best, I think. The moss fades away. The scene shifts to the city, where a hooded man stands on a balcony. Speaking into a communicator, he reports, Jack reporting, I've discovered the location of the faceless black scale. He's on 23rd Street in Nokin. It seems he's involved in some conflict with the hunters. Additionally, he spent a full hour inside a bookstore. Very suspicious. I believe it to be a secret meeting place for dark mages. On the other end of the line, the listener contemplates. A secret meeting place for dark mages? This is extremely valuable information. I'll organize everything and report to Joseph immediately. Send me all the details now. Suddenly, a shadow looms behind Jack. Wild's voice cuts through the rain. Well, little rat, aren't you? And a rather bold one at that. Jack turns, attempting to flee, but Wild simply places a hand on his face and mutters, "Die." It's over in an instant. Jack collapses lifelessly as Will consumes his soul with his own. The phone drops to the ground with a voice on the other end saying, "Hello, what happened? Hello." Weld crushes the phone underfoot, thinking, "How dare you spy on that residence?" Death was a merciful punishment for this transgression. In the director's office at the secret towers, someone knocks on the door. "Sir, I have something strange to report," the subordinate announces. The man at the desk removes his glasses and says, "All right, Claudio, come in." Claudio enters nervously, and the director asks, "So what's the situation?" Doesn't have anything to do with the appearance of the magic mirror. Those damn hunters, pests of Noken. If it weren't for them, I'd be enjoying a peaceful retirement at home. I swear I need to use their family tombs as punching bags. Claudio, trembling, responds, "You might want to be careful with your actions, sir." The director glares at him and retorts, "Or what? What's going to happen? And by the way, didn't you close the door?" The subordinate apologizes and says, "Actually, this is a new case." "Just a new case? How entertaining. But what could possibly be more important than the mess caused by those hunters?" The subordinate explains that the spy responsible for monitoring 23rd Street in Noken was killed. However, before dying, he reported discovering Weld's location. The director asks, "Who?" The subordinate replies, "Frank Wild, the destructive mage who disappeared after the battle with the Knights 2 years ago. We didn't think he survived, but you always believed he did." The director, not pleased, responds, "Of course, I know that pest better than anyone. It seems he's crawled out of the sewers. To think he was right here in Noken. I'm going to crush his head." But then he asks, "What was he doing on 23rd Street?" The report is limited because Wild killed the spy. But we know he spent an entire hour inside a bookstore, which seems ordinary. Maybe he even bought a book. The director slams the desk, furious. A dark mage who knows all the words of the world and uses them as a source of power. He went there to buy a book? That doesn't make any sense. Do we know anything about this bookstore? Any background on it? The subordinate answers, "Yes, we know a little about its background. It belongs to the Ash Merchant Group. It's been open for 3 years and has a good reputation. However, it doesn't have many customers. The only strange thing is that the owner isn't from here. Originally, we speculated it might be a meeting place for dark mages, but we're not entirely sure." The director asks, "Why aren't you sure?" The subordinate explains, "Because the Ash Merchant Group belongs to the Druids and no follower of the forest and nature would get involved with dark magic. Besides, we can't act against the Druids, especially since they're one of the main sponsors of the secret tower." The director punches the wall in frustration and shouts, "That bunch of crap-eating cowards? Or do you think I'm being irrational?" The subordinate quickly replies, No, of course not." The director demands, "Let me ask you, what is the mission of the Order of Knights?" The subordinate responds, "To eradicate all evil and bring peace." The director snaps, "Then we can't tolerate any evil or anyone who works with someone who does evil." Weld stayed in that bookstore for over an hour. Do you really think he went in there to have a friendly chat, read books, and drink tea? For God's sake, who would believe that? My disciple, do you really think a dark mage like him would enter a shop just to read a book? If you truly think that, I'll have to put on my boots and kick your ass. The subordinate tries to argue. "Sir, the Ash Merchant Group funds 40% of everything here. Without them," the director interrupts, "Fine, I'll go myself. I'll personally meet this man and see what's so special about that bookstore." As he leaves, walking through various areas, people greet him, asking how he is. Clearly, the man is powerful. Looking at Lin Jie's profile, he thinks, "Lin Jie, I'll personally see what kind of being you are." But at that moment, he feels a sharp headache and begins to hallucinate again. The curse of the Sword of Candela. He envisions himself falling into a river pulled by tentacles while an elf covers his mouth. When he opens his eyes again, he's already on the street, wandering aimlessly. Damn it, looks like I won't make it to that bookstore today. The Sword of Candela, due to the insanity and death of its original owner, carries a curse that drives its wielder mad. Only an extremely powerful knight at their peak can control it perfectly. However, the curse is already consuming me and I still haven't found a worthy successor. Invincible Holy Flame Knight. Yeah, right. Now I'm just an old man. The scene shifts to a severed hand, the aftermath of what that girl from earlier did. A man observing the scene thinks, "What a surprise, so much chaos here. It seems I underestimated that young girl. After all, the second in command isn't someone to take lightly. But when you face that, I wonder what you'll do." Jixu stands in front of a burning church when some men try to attack her from behind. However, they die mid-air, strangled by chains. She turns around and asks, "What's the situation, Max?" He replies, "Madam, it's confirmed. Helix has the creator of the magic mirror. It seems he's completely lost his mind and started a massacre among the hunters." She says, "So it's him then." Another subordinate approaches, descending as he says, "Madam, we're outnumbered. Helix is already allied with the third in command, Casper. I doubt this incident will be the end of things." One of the subordinates adds, "Helix is incredibly powerful, the closest panic-level hunter to the White Wolf. Not to mention, Casper trained most of the hunters. They've been planning this for a long time. The only reason you were betrayed is because of that treacherous bastard." Jixu turns to Kai and says, "Thank you, Kai. If you hadn't swapped clothes at that moment, and if you hadn't held off some of those monsters, I'd never have escaped alone. It's all thanks to you that I survived. Kai replies, Madame, thinking. She's so incredible. I can't even imagine what she's been through, but she manages to suppress the effects of cursed blood and maintain her rationality even in a transformed state. That's something only a handful of hunters can do. Her agility paired with her destructive power is almost like... At that moment, another man interrupts, saying, a goddess. You and the leaders, not even Helix, is that strong. You're the true panic-level hunter. When you transform, it doesn't matter if it's Helix or Casper. No one compares to you. This man, known as Rat, was also part of the group that betrayed Jixu. Jixu stares at him, thinking, it's always good to have someone like him around. Not to mention, I can trust their loyalty because of the rune marked on their soul. Kai and Max always manage to document the mental corruption caused by the birth of the magic mirror. It's likely due to this rune created by a white mage. Jixu turns to them and says, we all carry cursed blood. Hunting the cruel beasts of life is the path we chose. We're hunters, and there's no turning back. The group agrees and says, perfect, then let's go. This will be our final battle. At the church gates, they kick the doors open, breaking everything in their path. Inside, at the pulpit, or rather, the stage of the church, stands Casper, impaled by a scythe. Kai looks at him and says, Casper, you're the only one here. Where's Helix? The man is laughing maniacally. Kai says, wait a second. Something's not right here. When she touches him, he's already drenched in blood, his sanity slipping away. She asks for a syringe. Max hands it over, and she immediately injects it into Casper's chest. He keeps laughing like a madman, his body transforming as she demands, tell me, where's Helix? Did he take the generator for the magic mirror? The man continues laughing, mumbling, the sacred Lord is coming. Then grotesque forms burst out of his body and he dies. Jixu punches the wall in frustration, furious. One of the men says, Madame, why don't we ask King Yuji? He's part of the magical house. He won't refuse to help us. But she dismisses the suggestion, saying it's unnecessary, and instructs Kai to continue investigating with Max. She turns to Ryan, the sly rat, and says, you're coming with me. He asks, where to? And she replies, to 23rd Street. Meanwhile, our protagonist is calmly sipping coffee thinking, another day without a single customer. Since Old Wild and Miss G, no one has come in for 3 days. I'm only managing to pay the bills thanks to that black lady. Her funding and the formal business registration she gave me are the only reasons I can stay here as a resident. At least I hope the book I gave her can help her a little. Looks like I won't have any more customers in this weather. I should start thinking about ways to share my books. And then who walks into the shop? Miss Jisoo, looking adorably cute. Could she be trying to seduce our protagonist? She says, excuse me, Mr. Lin. He replies, Miss G, welcome back. But internally he's thinking, speak of the devil, and she appears. Could this be a good omen that'll make my business prosper again? This girl might just be the key to my fortune. I'll do my best. I didn't expect to see her back here today, just 3 days later. She's the first to return to my shop in such a short time. Meanwhile, she's thinking, this is a sign. He's saying he's completely disappointed in me. Even after guiding me so much, I still haven't managed to resolve anything. And here I am asking for his help again. I'm probably his most useless customer. At that moment, Jisoo notices the gargoyle that Wild had given to the protagonist. Asterisk, my god, that thing hasn't moved an inch, but I can already feel its intimidating aura. Even though he likes to pretend he's just a normal person, he displays these things in the middle of the shop. Is this supposed to comfort me? Or is he trying to encourage me, even though I'm such a weak child? She then apologizes to the protagonist, saying, I've disappointed you. At that moment, Ryan enters the shop, asking, boss, is this the place? The shop? He looks at the protagonist and thinks, oh, wait a minute, he's just a normal guy. The protagonist asks, Miss G, who is he? She replies, he's my subordinate and he's absolutely loyal. There's nothing to worry about. The protagonist sighs, thinking, poor girl, her ex traumatized her so much that she's introducing this guy as loyal. But wait, if she showed up here with someone else, shouldn't she be more confident? Why did she say she disappointed me? Could it be? The protagonist hands her the tea and asks, did you fail? At that moment, she thinks, yes, just as I thought. He already knows. She says to him, yes, I failed. He escaped and I don't even know where he is. I asked the others to search for him, but there's no news. Actually, I only managed to fight him for 2 days. After receiving these teachings, I was improving rapidly and even managed to corner him. However, yesterday, after 5 hours of a deadly battle, I was able to destroy his base, but I had to pay a very high price. That's when I realized. However, yesterday, after 5 hours of a deadly battle, I was able to destroy his base, but I had to pay a very high price. That's when I realized he wasn't even my opponent anymore. His partner had already abandoned him and fled long before. I underestimated him. In the end, I'm sorry, Mr. Lin. I was too careless. The protagonist, slightly confused, says, no, it's okay. It wasn't your fault. But in his thoughts, he wonders, what's going on? Why is she talking about romance as if it were a battle with someone? But as the saying goes, love, money, and war are all the same. He reflects. She must be used to using business terms. That's why she's describing it so strangely. No, it makes sense. What she means is that she argued with this guy for 3 days, but only understood his cunning plans on the last day when it was already too late. He escaped with the other partner and with her money. He turns to her and says, I understand you. I completely understand. She asks, what do you think then? But Ryan, standing behind her, feels something suspicious is going on. The scene shifts to a few minutes earlier when Ryan receives a call and hears, what did you say? The faceless old wild is a no-kin. Man, that information is classified. How did you find that out? He replies, are you doubting my words? The guy on the other side says no, but comments that this information is very important and will be extremely helpful. Ryan tells the guy to stop with the cheap compliments and says he has things to deal with. If they want more information, they should check what he posted in the society. The guy thanks him and says Ryan has a new mission, and his target is... Ryan interrupts. That girl? That poor innocent girl thinks the seal she put on me will stop me from doing anything. But I must admit, she has an interesting power. At that moment, Kai shows up and says, are you here, Rat? Matam is looking for you. We're leaving. Perhaps you need to learn a little discipline, don't you think? He gets up awkwardly, adjusting his hat, and says, no, it's fine. I'll speak to her now. I'm on my way. It seems he's trying to find a way to steal the blood control powers even in Jixu's transformed state. But now, back in the protagonist's bookstore, he's lost in thought, wondering, why does she respect this normal guy so much? He just looks like any other man, no matter how I look at it. And why does she refer to him as if he were a god? What's going on here? She then says, please guide me. And he replies, you don't need to worry so much. In fact, it's much easier than you think. Your enemy now isn't him but other things. What you fear is fear itself. So wait a little and good news will come. Ryan, hearing this, starts recognizing the tactics. Man, this is all nonsense. Empty words, vague talk. These are just persuasion techniques. I know them all too well. This guy is a complete liar. The protagonist then says to her, sorry, but I need to step out for a moment. I have some errands to finish. I'll be back in 5 minutes. The protagonist wants to go to the bathroom since he drank too much tea. As he heads upstairs, Ryan gets closer to her and says, boss, what are you doing? She turns and replies, insolent. What kind of tone is that? I brought you here because the information he provides is very useful, not because I trust or value you. You don't even know basic etiquette. Behave yourself, he thinks. But he's a liar. I'm sure of it. His tricks might be somewhat refined, but I know at least 3 people on this level. But she already puts her sword to his neck and says, shut up. I knew I shouldn't have brought you. A corrupted man like you who only thinks about evil things. If you weren't useful, I'd have killed you already. Ryan starts sweating a bit but thinks, hold on, she's just a dumb, knave girl. That would be easy to manipulate her. I just need to redirect her blind trust toward me, Ryan thinks. He then says, I'm loyal to you and you'll see that now. When he comes back, I'll prove it to you. Ryan starts preparing a poisoned arrow under his sleeve, but at that moment, who wakes up sensing his killing intent? The gargoyle immediately moves toward Ryan, grabs him, pulls him in, eats him, and that's it. Where's the guy? Gone in a second. Nothing left of him. The gargoyle returns to its position. The protagonist comes down the stairs and says, sorry for keeping you waiting. Your subordinate? Where is he? Did something happen? Jai is sitting there thinking. He acted. The shopkeeper even gave him a warning. In an instant, Ryan, no, even I couldn't have reacted to that. If the gargoyle had attacked me, I'd be dead, without a trace. But how did this happen? It ended in an instant. It's as if nothing even happened. And the worst part, this thing is so close to me. It feels like I'm staring death itself in the face. It's terrifying. I bet he already knew about Ryan's recklessness and went upstairs just to avoid dirtying his hands. It was such an elegant yet brutal tactic combined with his disdain for life. He really must be a dark mage. What am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this? I knew I shouldn't have brought that bastard here. Forget asking for help, I probably made Mr. Lin angry, and now he must think I'm behind all of this. The protagonist asks, is something wrong, Miss G? You're looking a bit pale. Relax, coming to my shop should be a relaxing experience. No need to look so frightened. Do you think I'd eat you? He lets out a laugh and she thinks, damn it. She starts apologizing to the protagonist. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My attendant is a bit rude, but I knew I shouldn't have brought him here. Please, it wasn't my intention. The protagonist looks confused, thinking, why is she even more nervous now? I just made a little joke. Does she actually think I'd eat people? No, that can't be it. How could an innocent, friendly civilian like me do something so cruel? This girl, I knew it. She's so naive. She believes everything people do. No wonder the guy from her story messed her up so badly. Well, since that's the case, I need to give her another soul healing session. I know I earned her trust in the last session since she came back here, so I just need to calm her down again. He says, Miss G, I'm sorry. I was just making a little joke. I'm not very good at these things. Now back to business. If you have any ideas, feel free to share them. I'll do my best to help you. She lets out a sigh, relaxing a bit. Phew, it seems you forgave my transgression. I need to be more careful. Mr. Lin, I'm sorry for causing you trouble. Please recommend me a book suitable for me. My mental strength is still too weak. The protagonist thinks. Man was gone for 5 minutes. Why does it feel like she's had a soul-shaking experience? Was it because of her subordinate's sudden disappearance? Speaking of him, the protagonist says, Miss G, that subordinate of yours didn't seem very reliable to me. It's better not to talk about things like absolute loyalty. She suddenly stands up and tries to speak. No, but what do you mean he? But she stops herself thinking. Hold on, Mr. Lin wouldn't say something without thinking. Maybe there's something wrong with the rune's loyalty. Mages write these loyalty runes that only they know how to destroy. The person who wrote Ryan's rune is one of the mages in my family. He's backed by my father, the mage Haywood. If Ryan's rune failed, it means the mage in my family is breaking the runes for me to lure others. She sits down looking a bit lost and says, how can this be? Then, who can I trust? The protagonist says, yourself. You can only depend on yourself. People are cruel no matter what you do. You can't fully expose yourself. When you become as indestructible as metal, no one will defeat you. She stands there thinking metal. The protagonist hands her a book saying, how steel was tempered. He thinks, read this masterpiece carefully. No matter what you take from it, it'll help you in some way. After handing her the book as usual, he places a hand on her shoulder and says, the most precious thing a man possesses is his life. It's given to him only once. He must live in a way that he won't feel torturous regret for years without purpose, never knowing the burning shame on the petty past. So you must forge your own destiny. In the rain, cling to your life. Reflecting on the protagonist's words, she looks at the book Will of Steel. When she opens it, it's as if she's transported again. A malevolent eye stares at her from above, and she hears a voice saying, the unyielding iron will has a direct effect on the power of the soul. Confused by what happened, she starts observing everything happening in the protagonist's shop. Noticing Ryan's head emerging from the gargoyle, she realizes the iron wheel on his rune was indeed broken. She uses a sort of power to enter the shop and communicate with Ryan, who is trapped, and says, hello Ryan, long time no see. He's there, immobilized, unable to speak. Mr. Lin is truly amazing. He modified the structure of my soul so easily and even granted me a massive amount of mana. I think I might finally surpass the panic rank. This kind of overflowing satisfaction isn't so bad. Wow, what a generous reward. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he gave me a second life. Mr. Lin must be trying to build his power with hunters. Little by little, he wants to completely change the ecosystem of the hunter hierarchy, and that's why he was so eager to help me. I understand his intention. I fully understand. From now on, I swear absolute loyalty to you. My body and everything you desire will be yours to command and use. Meanwhile, the protagonist is looking at her through the window, and she's staring back, her nose bleeding. She places her hand between her legs and runs off. The protagonist observes, thinking, wait, why was she still here? And why did her nose suddenly start bleeding? Could this girl be a Yandir? After being abandoned by that bastard, she keeps coming to my shop all the time. Could it be? No, I can't think that way. She's a very wealthy client. How could she like someone like me? I should focus on attracting more customers instead of these silly thoughts. Outside the shop, the captain thinks, so this is the so-called suspicious bookstore. Damn it. I can't understand why the old man keeps visiting this little shop. Either way, I can't let this opportunity slip by. Now that I have a lead, I'll go in and check it out personally, rather than relying on spy rumors. As a knight, bringing justice is my duty. Inside, the protagonist is tidying the shelves, relaxed in his chair. When the door opens, he thinks, that girl brought me a lot of luck. Another customer on a day like this. But the captain walks in and the protagonist looks up. Wow, a new customer. But why does he seem a bit intimidating? Welcome. Is there something I can help you with? He can read, borrow, or even buy a book from our shop. The captain looks around thinking, this really does seem like just an ordinary bookstore. There's not even any mana fluctuation. In that case, there's no point wasting time talking about Old Wild. This guy probably doesn't know anything. After scanning the shop, the only odd thing is the gargoyle. That old man wouldn't give this as a gift to someone without a reason. There must be some significance to it. The captain turns to the protagonist and asks, are you the owner of this shop? The protagonist, a bit confused, thinks, wow, this guy doesn't seem very sociable. I need to use some terms to ease things up and get him to open up a bit. I know, I'll call him Grandpa. That's right, Grandpa. This shop is mine. The captain gets pissed off. What did he say? Did he just call me Grandpa? No way. If a younger knight called me Grandpa, that'd be fine. You're lucky you're a civilian. Otherwise, I'd have killed you already. He turns to the protagonist and asks, is that gargoyle yours? The protagonist responds, a client gave it to me as a gift. It's a souvenir, but it's not for sale. The captain, irritated, thinks, damn it, does he think I want to buy that thing? Why would a radiant knight like me want a gargoyle made by dark mages? You're lucky, or I'd have broken it already. Frank Weld, was that his name? The protagonist observes the captain's reaction and thinks, it seems he knows Old Wild. Analyzing his demeanor, he wonders, could they have some kind of unresolved issue? A problem between them? The captain looks around thinking, something's off. Why would that old rat reveal his name to this ordinary guy? And even more, give him a gargoyle of this level? I thought this place was a meeting spot for dark mages, but this guy seems normal. Maybe he's just using this place to exchange information. Meanwhile, the protagonist is thinking, no, that's not what I think. My many years of judging people tell me that this man, as intimidating as he seems, isn't a bad person. Besides, it looks like he's barely keeping his temper in check. But since he walked in, he hasn't broken anything. He must have a gentle soul. Someone like him shouldn't have any issue with Old Wild, especially since he's just a scholar. As Sherlock Holmes says, if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. And in this case, there's only one correct answer. Grandpa, is Mr. Wilde a friend of yours? The captain gets angry immediately. Friend? Hold on. At most, you could say we've known each other for many years. I'd say we shared some tears and blood. However, we had a conflict 2 years ago, and I haven't heard from him since. He thinks, if I find that old man, I'll rip his head off and tear his organs apart. That's what I tried to do 2 years ago, and somehow he still escaped death. The protagonist, meanwhile, is thinking, my goodness, 2 old men with such a deep connection. How touching. I see. Why didn't you just say you were here because of Mr. Wilde? The bond you two share is something to be envious of. I'm sure Mr. Wilde will be moved when he hears your words. The captain says, I hope so. I've been searching for him for many years. Did you leave any way to contact him? If you could tell me, I'd like to visit him personally. But the protagonist responds, unfortunately, I don't have Mr. Wilde's address. If I did, I'd share it. But he borrowed a book a few days ago and should return soon. When he does, I'll mention you to him. For now, why don't you sit and rest? Or maybe, how about reading a book? The captain says, rest? Do I look tired to you? He starts thinking. He does maintain customer service standards even if he's a mutant. But he's an interesting guy. How long has it been since I spoke so casually with someone since I became a radiant knight? Every day people keep asking me, how are you, sir? Did you eat well, sir? Maybe I'll take this chance to relax a bit. He says to the protagonist, don't underestimate old folks. I was standing, not tired. But if you insist, I'll sit and accept this tea. However, I don't want to read a book, so don't bring me one. And I didn't bring any money. The protagonist, noting the tone of his voice, thinks he's a bit arrogant and says, you can read any book behind me for free. But here, have this cup of tea first. The captain says again, forget about the book thing. I won't stay here long. Thinking, damn, this headache from the sword is getting more annoying. At that moment, he accidentally elbows a book nearby. When he looks at it, the thing is emanating a demonic aura with the title, Seed of the Abyss. Seed of the Abyss? The protagonist says, I'm currently reading a little fairy tale, extremely relaxing, that soothes the soul. Would you like to take a look? It helps you relax before bed. The captain responds, fairy tale? How immature. Hey, man, you're an adult. Why are you reading something like that? The protagonist thinking, my goodness, with that condescending tone. But wait, did he just call me an adult? Am I not young anymore? He looks at the captain and says, I see. What shame. But this is the best fairy tale I've ever read, and it's also the only copy in Noken. He hands the book to the captain, who looks surprised and asks, the book you mentioned, you said it's a fairy tale? Are you sure? The protagonist replies, yes, it's a wonderful read. One of the classics of fairy tales. In the protagonist's hand is the little prince, but the captain thinks, wait, something's wrong here. Why is this guy calling a book titled Seed of the Abyss a fairy tale? What kind of terrifying story does he consider a fairy tale? Why is he calling it that? The captain sighs and thinks, damn it, now I'm curious. Let me take a look at this. But don't get me wrong. I'm not even remotely interested in your fairy tale. I just don't want to seem rude by rejecting a book you keep recommending. The protagonist thinks, sigh, this grandpa is really a Luxem type, a tough guy on the outside but soft-hearted on the inside. And if that's the case, he's going to fall in love with this classic fairy tale. But again, when the captain touches the book, the headache he was feeling intensifies and he's teleported into the presence of the sword. He immediately thinks, the sword of Candela is responding to something. But now? Why now? Wait a minute. Is that why he kept calling it a bedtime fairy tale? Was that the meaning? I can't. And then he faints. The protagonist is startled. Sir, Grandpa, are you okay? He thinks, my goodness, what just happened? Did he catch a cold from all this rain? Or was it a heart attack? He checks the captain's pulse and comments, his pulse is fine. It's even better than mine when I was younger. So why did he faint all of a sudden? Could it be because of my book? No, that doesn't make sense. Why would anyone faint just by looking at the cover of The Little Prince? He sighs, but there's nothing I can do now. The guy fainted in my shop, so I have to at least make him a bit more comfortable. He thinks, what am I going to do when he wakes up? The protagonist tries to carry the old man to a bed in the back, but the man is too heavy. Damn it, if only I had another customer here to help me move him. But with this weather, no one's going to show up. He sighs. I'm sorry, but there's nothing else I can do. He grabs the captain's cloak and starts dragging him. At the door, a little cat watches the scene. The protagonist places the captain on a chair and notices that the captain has a mechanical arm. He thinks, well, he's an amputee like Old Wild, and this arm is incredibly complex. I'm sure an ordinary person wouldn't be able to use it, not to mention his well-developed physique and that commanding tone of voice. Could this guy be a retired high-ranking military officer? No doubt about it, that has to be the case. I felt this kind of aura before, this defensive attitude of his and these mental issues. He must see his amputated arm as a memory of his battle days. People like this are very difficult to deal with, not to mention his arrogance. Maybe there was some kind of issue with his mechanical arm. Perhaps a short circuit caused by the weather. That's probably the most plausible reason for him fainting here. The protagonist reflects. But looking at this scene now, it feels like I'm doing something weird, doesn't it? Anyone watching would think I'm some kind of serial killer who made him pass out and is now going to finish him off. He thinks, my God, I need to stop having these thoughts. At that moment, he hears the door close and wonders if someone is there. When he reaches the entrance, he sees a small paw and goes outside to check. The creature runs away. He notices it was just a kitten and says it's dangerous out here and tells it to go back home. But the kitten is running away, scared, wondering what happened. It transforms into a man and wonders how things ended up like this. His name is Norzin, and just like the captain, he works at the secret tower and is a huge fan of Joseph. He worked hard and joined the intelligence office just to get closer to him. Because of this fanaticism, he knows everything about Joseph's history with Weld. Concerned about Joseph, Norzin followed his idol to see where he was going. When he arrived and saw there was just a bookstore, he relaxed, thinking nothing could go wrong. Apparently, there was no magical reaction there. It seemed to be just an ordinary bookstore. The feline says he'll get Joseph's autograph when he comes out. 10 minutes later, he's wondering why it's taking Joseph so long to return. The kitten glances back at him again, not because he wants to see his heroic figure, but just to check if he's okay. When he enters, Joseph is fainting and the cat asks what happened. He was talking until just a moment ago, and now he's collapsed. The feline asks who the shop attendant is and whether he used some kind of dark magic. When he sees the protagonist, he says, even a veteran like you must have sweet dreams once in a while. The kitten is terrified. The animal thinks he's sending the invincible sacred sword into eternal sleep. This can't be happening. He knows Joseph would have already managed to escape from this. The kitten realizes Lin has noticed him and says he needs to flee. That's when the kitten runs away and the protagonist at the door says it's dangerous outside, to be careful and go back home. Norzin is in the rain, crying desperately and wondering if this is what it feels like to almost die. He thinks the protagonist could have captured him but let him escape so he could return and tell everyone. He knows he needs to return to the office now and inform Mr. Joseph. Norzin has been in this job for a year and now feels this is the most important mission of his life. In Joseph's mind, he's still trapped in that same sea of the sword. However, for the first time in that place, he doesn't feel pain and a voice speaks to him. When you gaze into the abyss gazes back at you, and the abyss recognizes its own. All the information from that so-called fairy tale is flooding his mind, and he shouts, "Stopped, stopped," saying that so many words are too much for his head. The sword speaks to him, saying it's happy and has finally met him. He starts to notice the pain is gradually subsiding and wonders if it's Candela and if she's waking up. This type of fairy tale, it's not for children. After seeing some images of the elf, who was the first wielder of the sword, he wakes up completely startled. The protagonist observes that he's awake. Joseph smiles and thanks him. Lin says, "Don't worry about it," and asks if he's feeling better. Joseph, now excited, gets up and says he feels great, better than before. The protagonist thinks, of course, a retired soldier with that monstrous physique. He considers that his skill in judging people is getting sharper than ever and that with his strength, Joseph could probably kill someone with a single punch. If he hit Weld, his body would go flying. Thank goodness they're friends. The old man apologizes for accepting his hospitality and causing trouble. Lin says it's fine and that it's only natural to help customers as much as possible. The old man understands this relaxed attitude of his, noting that Lin would help anyone who entered his shop regardless of their affiliations. He thinks that whoever enters the store, Lin will assist without worrying about their ideals. The old man reflects that he has only seen this kind of attitude in one group, the elves, the ancient race that lives for countless years, so elegant and full of knowledge. He muses that it would all make sense if a shop owner were an elf. It's because he has lived so long that he abandoned the distinction between good and evil, choosing only to help others. Lin treats people with such warmth and a polite attitude, such elegance. Such a demeanor can only be achieved after years of refinement. The old man questions why Lin chose to open a bookstore. It must be due to the knowledge elves possess, as humans today no longer have much interest in books. In ancient legends, Candela was the prince of the old elf kingdom, who later became the moon king of the elves and eventually the source of the plague and the first to lose his mind. He killed himself with his own sword, and the sword sealed his soul. His soul then returned to the sword, causing a curse on it, turning it into the Mad King's sword. After that, anyone who used the sword would lose their mind and eventually die. Norzin keeps thinking that until today he believed there wasn't much hope for him, but the book was able to calm Candela. Who else, other than an elf, could possess such a book? A book with such ancient secrets. This guy must be one of the greatest elders. To maintain such longevity, he must have used all of his magic, which is why Norzin doesn't feel any magical fluctuations. Now everything makes sense. Then the old man asks Lin if the book is a unique copy, and says he likes it and wonders if he can borrow it. The protagonist thinks, look at him trying to hide his softer side. Lin quickly responds, of course, and adds that he wouldn't recommend it if it weren't available for his clients. Lin thinks, every child needs validation. I'll tell you the truth. The protagonist tells the old Joseph that he was sure this book was perfect for him. He explains that many suffer from pain and torment and end up regretting being consumed by it. This makes them feel as if their strength is inadequate, and this excess of doubt leads them to madness. He reflects that people who have seen too much blood on the battlefield always regret their bad actions and can't let go of the past. The effects of these wars leave marks that haunt them for the rest of their lives. Lin tells Joseph that what defeats them isn't the pain they suffer, but the weakening of their kindness. Joseph reflects on the two previous wielders of the sword who succumbed to the feeling of inadequacy for it, and asks Lin if it's wrong to be good. The protagonist responds, being kind is good. The key word here is weakness. He explains that others have high expectations because of their strong sense of responsibility. They want to convey a sense of reliability, support, and trust to hide their weaknesses. But in reality, this kind of protection is the greatest weakness. It doesn't showcase genuine kindness. He adds that this kindness can save others but won't save you. As soon as your spirit weakens, you'll become vulnerable to anything. He advises that sometimes it's better not to try to be the hero or pretend to be invincible. Lin reminds Joseph that for someone in his position, it also takes great courage to live like an ordinary person without worries. The protagonist feels emotional, convinced that his words touch Joseph. Joseph falls forward, realizing that the corruption of the sword doesn't drive people insane. It's the pursuit of perfection that it imposes on them. Damn it, why didn't anyone notice this before? He asks. He wonders how long the calm will last. The protagonist thinks, this guy's a bit crazy. If fairy tales were this effective, we wouldn't need psychologists. He replies, it won't stay calm for long, and offers to help Joseph with this, guaranteeing long-lasting results. Lin is thrilled, thinking, now I'll definitely have another recurring customer in my shop. Joseph stands up and asks what Lin just said. Joseph wonders if the shopkeeper is saying he will handle the entire curse of Candela on his own. He recalls memories of people saying, that's the ex-radiant Joseph, the one who held that sword the longest. But one of them believes that's not why Joseph is falling apart. The sword couldn't corrupt someone like him, so broken already. The man says, the flame was invincible, man, but that was intimidating long ago. Now he's probably thinking about succumbing to depravity before the sword has the chance. Joseph thinks retiring might have been a good thing. It's the perfect opportunity for Candela to find its rightful wielder. He asks the protagonist if he's sure and whether it won't be inconvenient since it's no simple task. The protagonist thinks, wow, he's definitely a friend of Old Wild. The two care deeply about each other. The protagonist thinks, this will be easy, I'm a professional life coach. He assures Joseph not to worry since he can barely stand anyway. Lin tells Joseph he can keep the book since he's been carrying these burdens for too long and he and his heroic comrades deserve a rest. Joseph reflects on Lin's altruism, grace, and elegance. As he suspected, only those who've lived so long achieve this level of kindness. Lin gives a slight smile. The old man says he doesn't need rest and will only rest when the world is at peace. Joseph says he needs time to think about all this and asks if he can borrow the book for a few days, promising to return in a week. The protagonist replies, perfect, no problem at all. Just register your contact details here and we'll sort everything out. The protagonist thinks that Joseph's exaggerated sense of justice seems to be the source of his pain and concludes he's gained another customer. Lin hands a pen and paper to the old man, saying, you just need to make a one-time deposit, sign your name here, and write the return date. We'll refund half your money if you don't want to borrow any of the other books. The old man thinks, in the end, this really is just a bookstore. The protagonist says, see you in a week. The old man offers his condolences to Lin and reflects that he has no regrets. The only thing left for him now is to deliver justice to this world. It doesn't matter if Old Wild survived and was helped by this shopkeeper. Sooner or later, he'll die by my hand. It's entirely my responsibility because that's my duty. Meanwhile, Wild is conducting his research, marveling this knowledge is as vast as the heavens, as deep as the oceans. As expected of Mr. Lin, his mind feels electrified. This sacrificial ceremony is so wild and terrifying, yet strangely rational at the same time, a grotesque and perverse masterpiece. Perhaps now the so-called faceless black scales will return in Noquim. That first book, The Language of Demons, was merely a fraction of the bigger picture. The cult of the ghouls might finally allow me to understand more about this terrible lost civilization. What grandeur, it's hypnotic. All of this was only possible thanks to Mr. Lin. Wild prepares a gift for Lin, confident he'll love it. The next chapter begins with Claudio, Joseph's assistant, asking, are you saying he was inside a bookstore and fainted just by looking at the guy? How is that possible? Claudio wonders if he should send someone there, but if Joseph fainted, no one else could stop this man. Sending someone weak would only lead to their death and a disastrous outcome. At that moment, the phone rings. Claudio answers, panicking. It's from the team investigating the bookstore. What's the situation? He asks. He wonders what happened. Joseph takes the phone and calls for Claudio. Claudio answers, asking how the professor is doing. Joseph inquires about the orders he gave the team. The old man instructs, summon all investigators immediately to 23rd Street and classify that bookstore as Class 1, an ultra-secret area. Claudio asks about Class 1 and whether it's indescribable. Claudio begins asking about the bookstore owner but falls silent. Joseph, glancing at the kittens nearby, asks Claudio if anyone is with him. Claudio confirms, and Joseph tells him to stay quiet and get the job done. Claudio agrees and says he'll update the system. He reflects that Joseph hasn't changed a bit. No matter how intimidating he seems, as long as you follow the right orders, you're fine. Shortly after, Claudio contacts headquarters to register the bookstore as Class 1. Joseph then enters the room and tells Claudio not to forget to use a memory-erasing rune. He picks up a fainted kitten and says, "This animal is the investigator. His name is Morrison." Claudio explains that Morrison comes from a highly talented shape-shifting family and is especially a fan of Joseph. Moreover, there are about 13 groups dedicated solely to discussing Joseph. Claudio adds that Morrison even joined a fundraiser to have Joseph's name written in gold after last year's incident. Joseph ponders this and asks why Morrison did that. He's heard that mage families are quite wealthy and asks if that's true. Claudio agrees, and Joseph suggests that instead of wasting money on such trivial things, Morrison should donate directly to his idol. Joseph declares, "He'll definitely be one of my apprentice mates. He'd have much closer contact with me and would surely be thrilled." Claudio wonders how a Radiant Knight can be so greedy. He just wants to take money from the kid who idolizes him. But since it's an order, I'll comply. Perfect, then I won't even have to spend money to wipe his memories. The narrative shifts to everything Joseph has recorded about the bookstore. Daily classification, Class 1, bookstore in Noquim, Upper City. Danger level, friendly. Security level, ultra secret. Description: the bookstore owner appears to be a very ancient hermit. His services include renting and selling books, which contain immense and mysterious powers. This secret file should be enough to keep anyone away from that shop. Of course, some idiot might still want to check it out, but they'll need luck. The scene cuts to Joseph at home, angrily answering a call. He says he's fine and asks who spread the rumor that he was dead. He complains about not receiving the file, saying, "If I were dead, I wouldn't care." He adds that he's working and tells the caller to bother someone else before abruptly hanging up. They discuss how, even though the sword has eased his pain, his temperament remains the same, calm and collected. The phone rings again, and Joseph wonders, who's calling me at this hour again? He mutters that the Society of Truth has implemented new labor laws, so they'll need to increase his salary to compensate for the emotional damages they're causing. He's in his daughter's room, telling her not to forget to drink her milk. She responds, "I know already. I'm not a child anymore." Melissa says, "I'm already a captain-level abnormal knight. You don't need to remind me." Joseph retorts, "Melissa, I'm not telling you to drink milk to grow taller. You won't find a husband if you keep talking like that," implying she's lacking in curves. Melissa snaps back, "This old man only has muscles instead of a brain." As she glances to the side, she notices a book on the table. She wonders, what could that brainless guy be reading? I've never seen this book before. She opens it, begins reading, and her eyes light up. Meanwhile, Joseph is still on the phone, angrily telling the other party to stop bothering him. "The owner of that store incapacitated me without even breaking a sweat. Don't you get it? Don't do anything stupid. I'm not saving anyone if something happens." Melissa closes the book and rushes out of the room. Joseph yells after her, "Melissa, don't forget to drink your milk." She slams the door, and Joseph thinks this kid is in her rebellious phase, but it's fine as long as she's growing up healthy. Outside the room, Melissa is deep in thought. Who wrote that book? Could the protagonist be Elvin Kane Candela? Why are those stories so splendid and vivid? The worst part is that I couldn't finish it. I was just about to get to the best part. She mutters that she wants to see what happens next and calls her father stupid. Still, she admits she didn't expect that Blockhead to like such a book and feels she was being unfair to him. She recalls overhearing something about the bookstore being classified as high rank. But who cares? It's just a bookstore. Like anyone powerful would be in a place like that. She smirks, thinking her late mother's access still works. After all, her mother was one of the Radiant Knights. After reading that novel, Melissa promises to work hard and become an excellent knight, vowing not to disappoint. She finds the bookstore in Joseph's Class 1 notes friendly. Melissa doesn't think it's anything remarkable and decides to check it out. She drinks her glass of milk, wondering, will they grow? As the story transitions, the radio plays once again, announcing that the observatory has categorized the rain as a red-level warning. All roads from Noquim to the lower city are temporarily closed. All sewers are operating at maximum capacity. Experts warn that if the rain continues for another week, a third of Noquim will be completely flooded. The analysis attributes the rain to cold winds coming from the northern cities. Meanwhile, at the protagonist's bookstore, Lin is mopping the floor, thinking this heavy rain has lasted so long. It's been over a week, and it's only getting stronger. If it doesn't stop, I might have to buy a boat. Forget customers. Living normally in this weather will be difficult. He recalls waking up to find the entire floor flooded, but was relieved the books remain untouched. Now having finished cleaning, Lin is exhausted, but pleased the floor looks spotless. Time to open the store, he says. Lin wonders if that kitten found its way home. It's so dangerous wandering around out there in such terrible weather. Elsewhere in Joseph's office, Morrison, a shape-shifting kitten, is sniffing the room curiously. Such a peculiar guy, Joseph mutters. Then a man bangs on a table nearby, complaining, God, this TV, this rain. Jesus Christ, can anyone save me? It seems to be a TV problem, likely a blown fuse. However, the man refuses to go outside in this weather. He decides to ask his neighbor for help, knowing he's always assisting others. Knocking on Lin's door, he asks if he's home. Lin answers, yes, Is there something I can help with? The man explains the situation, saying he's too busy to go out and asks Lin to check the circuit. The switch is located behind the store's exit door on the right-hand wall. Lin agrees to take a look but feels an odd sensation. Suddenly, a monstrous figure appears in front of him. Lin stares at the creature and exclaims, "Hey, Tinta. Long time no see." He asks, "You need something, or are you here to remind me to deliver more books?" Tinta points toward the door and Lin asks, "Outside?" He wonders aloud if Tinta wants to help him, thinking Tinta is so polite and adorable. The last time Tinta visited, he said that just delivering those books was already a huge help. Lin thinks Tinta is probably here to express his gratitude again. Considering that Tinta might feel upset if he refuses, Lin decides to let him handle it and thanks him. Tinta heads outside and fixes the fuse. The man thanks him and says he'll ask for his help next time too. The protagonist says it's no problem and Tinta returns to the store. The man, now watching his TV again, thinks, "What a kind and convenient guy," before turning his attention back to the screen. But as he looks at the TV, a shadowy, sinister figure appears, staring back at him. Meanwhile, Lin sits back in his chair thinking, another day has passed, another good deed done. If that guy thinks well of me and helps spread the word about my store, that'd be great. Just then, someone enters the store. The protagonist wonders, what a coincidence. I just did a good deed, and a customer shows up right after. He asks who it is, and Mr. Weld responds, immediately apologizing. Lin asks why Weld returns so quickly, observing his attire and noting that compared to his mask, Weld dresses like an English gentleman. Lin comments, "To visit even in this weather? It must be something urgent." Weld bows slightly, saying, "The favors you've granted me far outweigh any inconvenience from the weather. I come to formally express my gratitude." "Oh," Lin replies, "I was already very satisfied with the gift you gave last time. What kind of precious item have you brought today? I'll need to think carefully before accepting it." Weld marvels at Lin's kindness and modesty, thinking, compared to this, even the gargoyle is nothing. He's always so considerate and respectful. He explains that thanks to Lin's help, he is now one step away from reaching the indescribable level. Weld feels compelled to give him a gift he spent 2 entire years crafting. Only this could repay his gratitude. He tells Lin not to hesitate, assuring him it's nothing too important, just something that would be more useful to Lin. "If you don't accept it, I'll feel terrible," Weld insists. Lin says it's a bit of an exaggeration as he didn't do anything special. Nonetheless, he admits he doesn't know what was prepared, so he'd like to take a look first. Willard pulls the gift from his coat, placing it on the table. It's a dream catcher. "A dream catcher?" Lin asks, surprised, reflecting on the nostalgic feeling it evokes. Years ago, before transmigrating to this world, he attended a cultural fair and learned about dream catchers. They are a cultural symbol of Native Americans believed to filter out nightmares and allow only good dreams to pass through. Lin looks at Weld and says, "I never thought I'd see a dream catcher here." Weld replies that he's well-versed in their significance. While dream catchers are rare magical tools, their value lies in the dream caught within their web. Lin examines it closely, noting the craftsmanship and quality. He concludes it must be handmade. Given the constant rain and storms disrupting his sleep, Weld must have put a lot of thought into this gift. "This is exactly what I needed," Lin says, thanking him. Weld's eyes light up and he responds, "It's my honor," before leaving. As he departs, he reflects, this is an extremely pleasant dream, unlike any other. But it also carries immense danger. Without the willpower of an indescribable being, it would utterly destroy any soul. For someone as powerful as Mr. Lin, though, it will be nothing more than a rare night of amusement. Sweet dreams. The next chapter begins with an explosion. Kai is thrown through the air, but Max uses a chain to catch her mid-flight. Pulling her back, she soars through the air, gripping her sword. He warns her to be more careful, admitting he didn't expect their enemies to have mages. The mage is seen conjuring bizarre runes while a vampire is attacked by a serpent. As the snake is about to strike, she begins to transform, turning into a wolf and tearing the snake in half. Onlookers are stunned, wondering how she's able to control her transformation. Helix didn't mention this when the mutters. Another mage tries to reassure the group, stating that White Wolf of Silence is afraid of fire. But someone else retorts, "It's raining. They won't be able to make fire here." The mage insists, saying she's only in a panic level. "If we act quickly, we can still win this." From above, Max observes, thinking, "You're just digging your graves." For all hunters, this is the power they've always dreamed of. You could lead hunters to a new world. But the person who made this happen, the one who helped her, the resident of 23rd Street, who is he? And what is his goal? Max appears beside her and says, "Don't overthink things. We just need to follow her and share in the glory later. That's our job." She agrees, saying, "The battle's not over yet." The mages are casting fire magic despite the rain, managing to burn the warrior. A massive explosion follows. She emerges from the flames, now in a dark form with an eye appearing above her. The mages cast another spell, striking her with lightning, causing yet another explosion. Max watches, terrified. From above, one of the mages observes and says, "Yuan, someone needs to help her." "I didn't even know Noquim had someone like this, capable of controlling the beast form. Not even Wild can do that." Another mage asked, "Have you seen Wild around?" The people at the Tower of Instruments said he was spotted near 23rd Street. The first mage replies, "Let's go. After all, he's still our teacher." Maybe. But his sentence is cut off as a rift from the beyond opens behind him. On the verge of being bitten, the mage thinks, I forgot. The Beast of Dreams, the Silent Wolf, is famous for its teleportation abilities. But how did she get my coordinates? Another mage retreats, casting 2 spells, Vertigo and Flash, to pursue her. Witnessing his speed, she recognizes the strange powers. She knows they're highly refined magic, achievable only by a top-tier mage. Exhausted, she watches him pull out a knife, aiming for her head. But she activates a skill she learned from the book Lin gave her, Iron Will. She teleports, severing his arm in the process. Before she can react further, another mage casts a purple spell into the sky, declaring, Fire Magic, Decay Sky. Seeing the spell, she realizes how dangerous it is. Against this opponent, she has no choice but to flee. Even if her body takes damage, she activates forced teleportation and vanishes. The mage who summoned the fiery sky asks Helix if he's okay. Helix replies, I'm fine, but that guy from 23rd Street has made her far more powerful than we expected. He seems extremely dangerous. The other mage asks, is it because of the teleportation power? Helix, reconstructing his severed arm, responds, I want to know how she extracted Ryan's soul's information and pinpointed our location so precisely. On top of that, she broke through my mental controls. That kind of power is what interests me. He adds, unfortunately, I have something more urgent to handle. Check it out yourself. And remember, Yuan is more important than wild. The mage agrees, pulling out a dimensional egg. Do you think you can hatch it? The mage replies, surprise, a dream beast? No, the other mage says with a smirk, a god, a true god. The next chapter begins with Lin worried. Who knows when this rain will stop, he mutters. He decides to buy some supplies for the house. Entering his room, he grabs a hammer and a nail, then hangs the dream catcher above his bed. The craftsmanship of Old Wild is excellent. Even disregarding its supposed blessing, the attention to detail is remarkable, just like that gargoyle. The old man has a unique way of doing things. Lin thinks he should talk about it with Wild during his next visit. Hoping it works, he bids goodnight, wishes for pleasant dreams, and closes his eyes. The object begins to glow. Lin feels snow brushing against his body and wonders if this is his dream. The snow feels like ash, but it's warm, not cold. Well, that makes sense. Dreams are strange anyway. Looking ahead, he sees a giant tree and marvels at its beauty. Obviously, a tree this massive couldn't exist in real life with its twisted branches and a crown that covers the sky. But then he notices something odd. Beneath the tree lies a girl, a white-haired elf. At that moment, a strange but familiar melody resonates in Lin's heart. I crown myself king of the cold north, with a carpet of needles and my crown of snow. Lin is in awe. What a spectacular scene, he says aloud. This must be a wonderful dream, maybe even a fairy tale. Wild wasn't exaggerating. Everything feels delicate, clean, and refreshing. No matter how much I look at them, these flowers couldn't be more real. He concludes this must be the lucid dreaming people often talk about, where memories and thoughts are retained and sensations mimic real life. The dreamcatcher likely provided psychological suggestions coupled with Wild's words creating this dream. Lin muses, this explanation is scientific, rational, and poetic. Amazing. Does this mean I can do whatever I want in this dream? After pondering for a moment, he decides against testing it. Even in dreams, there should be limits. But why am I dreaming of such beauty? Lin reflects that people in dreams shouldn't feel so unfamiliar, but he dismisses the thought. If I had to guess, it's because Chinese people love white hair, right? That must be it. In the end, it's just a dream, anything can happen. Curious, he decides to approach the figure. As he gets closer, he marvels, this is definitely a dream. Such beauty is like a masterpiece, a goddess's ethereal allure. Since it's a dream, Lin feels he can loosen up a little. It's fair to say this is a gift, an admiration for her appearance. He thinks, even though he knows this flower doesn't belong to him. Lin places a flower gently on her face, admitting to himself, that was a bit bold of me, but it's fine. It's just a dream after all. He reassures himself, yes, just a dream. Nothing significant. But then, her eyes open. Startled, Lin takes a step back. She stands up and adjusts her clothing, revealing her full height, towering at over 2 meters. He's astonished. I couldn't tell she was this tall while lying down. Dreams really make anything possible. She looks directly at him and asks, who are you? Confused, Lin stammers, are you talking to me? Dream figures usually come from a person's subconscious, he thinks. Maybe this is the perfect opportunity to talk to my subconscious. He responds, I'm a dreamer, you could say. She replies, of course you are, you're in a dream. Obviously, you're a dreamer. Lin is taken aback. She knows she's in a dream. Incredible. This dream persona is full of surprises. My subconscious projection is so mysterious. This really is a dream. He agrees, saying, that's true. But who are you? And you can't just say you're a dreamer too. Feeling slightly embarrassed, Lin wonders, why does it feel like this dream is exposing my cheeky side? She smiles and introduces herself. My name is Silver. When Lin asks for her surname, she dodges the question, saying, at least what I've told you is true. Then she adds, now you're mine. Lin is caught off guard by her boldness. That's unexpected. A counterattack like this is bad. Her smile is lethal. Silver continues, saying, I've been here for so long, I don't even know how long it's been. This place is beautiful, but it's so quiet, a deadly silence. She then asks Lin, can you tell me why I feel this way? Lin thinks for a moment and suggests, isn't it just loneliness? Perhaps I could expand my business into the dream world. He chuckles to himself, finding this dream exhilarating. This place is so romantic with a breathtaking mountain. It's like something straight out of a fairy tale. Guiding a graceful and elegant lady with my soul-healing words. Helping others is so relaxing. This is addictive. As the saying goes, helping others always brings joy. Returning to the situation at hand, Lin realizes, these pajamas are too casual. If I could wear what I usually prefer, my suit would be perfect. Suddenly, he's dressed in his suit and declares, perfect. He marvels at how he can manifest his imagination in this lucid dream, albeit within limits. Feeling more confident, Lin extends his hand and says, why don't we sit down? Silver, delighted, takes his hand. Lin notices her hand is soft and cold, and he contemplates understanding the situation better. Are you the only one in this dream, he asks. Silver responds, in this place, no one has ever entered before. Well, except for you. Lin thinks she's like a Rapunzel, always living alone in this enchanting garden in eternal rest. This is exactly like a fairy tale. Too bad, it's just a dream. He muses that understanding her problems won't change anything since it's not real. Lin tells her, what you're feeling is loneliness. You feel this way because you're alone in this place with no one to talk to, no new experiences. It's just endless questions, and the more you think, the more painful it becomes. Many people face this problem. Silver reflects, thinking is the source of my pain. No one truly understands me. They're all afraid of me. They alienate me. Lin strokes his chin, pondering. If her loneliness stems from contemplation, she's like a philosopher. Suddenly, he has an idea. There's an old saying, man thinks and God laughs. Let's ignore the deeper meaning for now. If God could see that this thinker is such an extraordinary beauty, he would smile warmly. With that in mind, perhaps contemplation wouldn't feel so painful anymore. It would simply be an unspoken connection with God. Lin notices Silver blushing and asks, is this theory romantic? Silver replies, you really do sound like a romantic thinking like that. Feeling slightly embarrassed, Lin admits, I guess I am a bit too romantic, but that's probably why I can talk to you like this. I feel like I can understand you. Silver agrees, saying, if you can appear in this dream, it means you already understand me. We're on the same level. Perhaps you're even a great thinker. Lin wonders, is that a philosopher's compliment? It really feels calming. He then asks, does that mean I've earned your approval? Without waiting for an answer, he gently holds her hand and says, I need to ask a favor. This is my most sincere request. I hope you'll accept. She nods, curious. He then asks, with you, my friend? Silver looks confused. Lin thinks, if my suspicions are correct, someone who isolates themselves like she does would subconsciously reject the idea of making the first move. I have to frame it this way so she won't refuse. She hesitates, asking, friend? What do you mean by that? Yes, a friend. Lin says enthusiastically, as beautiful as this place is, it's always the same. Sooner or later, you'll grow tired of it. Have you ever had a friend before? Someone to share trivial daily stories with? It might bring some joy into your life. It's better than being alone. Of course, Lin has another plan in mind. When he talks about sharing, he really means promoting. By promoting, he means recommending his books. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't try to promote my books, even if they aren't part of the dream library, he thinks. Lin attempts to replicate something from his memories just like he did with his suit. Suddenly, Green Fairy Tales appears on his thigh. Closing the book, he says, this book will be a gift from a friend who met you for the first time. Silver stares at the book, reaches out, and takes it. It's been so long since I've received a gift, she says softly. No one has ever even wanted to talk to me before. I have nothing here. Just this tree, some fruit, flowers, and honey. She offers them to Lin, saying, if you want, you can take some of these as my gift to you. Lin looks up and notices the tree's golden fruits for the first time. Since this is a gift of thanks, I can't refuse, he says, feeling that this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Can these fruits be eaten raw, he asks. Of course, Silver replies. She raises her hand and a fruit drops into his palm. Lin examines it, thinking, what a strange dream. This color is so unusual. What could it taste like? He takes a bite and finds it incredibly sweet. Moreover, it has no seeds. It's good, he says, but not that different from a normal apple. It's probably a distant relative of one. Silver watches him intently and asks, what do you think of it? It's very sweet, he replies. Suddenly, Lin starts trembling and the dream begins to shatter around him. Am I waking up, he wonders. It feels like he hasn't been there long, but he knows dreams are fleeting. Turning to Silver, he says, as much as I'm reluctant to leave, I must. He extends his hand to her. She takes it, and just as the dream dissolves, she leaps forward, bites his ear lightly, and whispers, I'll wait for you when the next night comes so we can meet again in this dream. The next chapter opens in the rain. A man lights a cigarette, muttering maybe picking Alex was a mistake this time, but choosing someone else would have been even worse. After all, that guy betrayed my teacher and even killed his student. Nothing much can be done now anyway. A voice from outside asks, what's so special about this mission that requires someone injured like you to handle it? The man explains, Lady Jie grew immensely powerful not long ago. Even with Alex's strength combined with mine, we couldn't take her down. Old Wild suffered a fatal wound during that fight. Even though he survived, he probably went into hiding to preserve his pride. But there's news that he's reappeared and his strength seems more terrifying than ever. Both of them are connected to that bookstore on 23rd Street, as if their fates were rewritten there. The other man responds, so that's what's happening. Do you remember the mission? Yes, the injured man replies. Investigate that bookstore and its owner. Gather information about his strength, appearance, and the general layout of the environment. Good, the other man says. Go and bring back good news. The faceless black scales reappeared, stronger than before. Not even a horror story author would write such a straightforward plot. The man sincerely hopes this information is wrong. The agent he sent arrives in front of the protagonist's bookstore and thinks, 23rd Street, number 412, bookstore. That's what the description says. Strange. There's no magical reaction here. Judging by my senses, it's just an ordinary place. Could the higher-ranked individuals be mistaken? I should at least check the second floor. The gargoyle watches him, but since it only attacks when it senses murderous intent, the agent feels at ease. The man stares at the door to the protagonist's room, thinking, this is the only place I haven't checked yet, and it's the only room showing signs of life. But the aura behind this door feels normal, not the aura of a mutant. Looks like everyone was worrying over nothing. This mission will be extremely simple in the end. It seems like Mr. Yuan and the others were wrong, but it's obvious. What could a bookstore owner possibly have? A monster. The man considers handling it right then and reporting back afterward. He imagines the scene thinking they were all so worried, but it was just an ordinary guy, and I've already dealt with him. The expressions on their faces when they hear this will be hilarious. Meanwhile, in the dream world, the protagonist's bed has transformed into a garden, and he's sleeping peacefully in the middle of it. Before the agent can react, his eye falls to the ground. He's been captured by something. He retreats the way he came, descending the stairs, muttering, I must eliminate anything that threatens my existence. Your servant is eager to serve. Outside, Mr. Yuan wonders why John hasn't returned yet. John is extremely efficient, and this mission didn't even involve combat. Could it be that the owner of the bookstore isn't as simple as he seemed? Apparently, sending John was the right decision. The situation isn't so bad. Even if something happens, John shouldn't have trouble escaping with his skills. Half of his blood is Bryosin, an aquatic invertebrate fish. He can hide exceptionally well, transform into a shadow quickly and easily, and mask his aura to infiltrate anywhere. Escaping a bookstore should be no problem. Perhaps I should consider the possibility that we've alerted the owner. Mr. Yuan decides that if John doesn't return, he will take over the mission himself. He looks at his shadow and wonders, I just stubbed out my cigarette. Why is there still a shadow in this dark alley? He tosses the cigarette pack and detonates it with a spell. It seems he's realized what's happened. This is bad, he thinks. The rain has reduced the potency of my fire magic, and worse, I don't understand why John betrayed me. But it doesn't matter. He must die. He attempts to attack John with another spell, but John emerges from the shadows, throwing tentacles and tridents that pin Mr. Yuan to the wall. Mr. Yuan manages to cast his spell, burning John's body. He mutters, I suppose you don't know more about betrayal than I do, John. Did you really think I wouldn't be prepared for this? He calls John naive, but as he looks at John's burning body, he can't even comprehend what he's seeing. A skeletal mouth speaks, Your servant, my lord, will remove all obstacles for you. In that moment, Mr. Yuan understands that John isn't a church disciple. He realizes this is the work of the bookstore owner. This is a warning. The scene shifts to the mage leader. Someone enters his room and announces, Mr. Yuan is dead. The leader turns and asks what happened. These are all the photos and magical analysis of the scene delivered by the black mages of the Scarlet Cult, the messenger replies. In the photos, the plants from the protagonist's bed have spread throughout the alley. The messenger explains, Mr. Yuan sent someone to investigate the bookstore on 23rd Street, as you instructed. But the person he sent returned and killed him. This photo here shows what Mr. Yuan wrote in his final moments. Stay away from there. The mage leader thinks, a completely unknown entity entered John's body and manipulated his mind immediately after he left that bookstore, something even the black mages couldn't identify. He looks at the messenger and asks, what do you now? The messenger responds, the black mages are collecting evidence to send to the Scarlet Cult. It seems they plan to have Murphy analyze it. They'd also suggested we abandon all investigations of the bookstore to avoid interfering with the birth of the magic mirror. The leader reflects, this Murphy is a destructive mutant who belongs to the Scarlet Cult. He hasn't made an appearance until now. He then instructs the messenger to inform the Scarlet Cult that the White Wolf will cooperate fully. The messenger agrees and leaves. The leader, now alone, ponders, was this a warning from the bookstore owner? I didn't expect him to be so brutal. The cult is in a critical phase for the birth of the magic mirror, and no complications can arise now. It's so close. The leader doesn't care what kind of creature the bookstore owner has. He won't allow any interference with his plans. Meanwhile, the protagonist is waking up thinking, morning already. He decides he needs to thank Old Wild the next time he sees him. That object really gave me wonderful dreams, Lin reflects. He hopes things go as Silver said and remembers her telling him she'll wait to meet him in the dream again when the next night comes. While brushing his teeth in front of the mirror, Lin notices something strange. He examines his mouth and thinks, what is this? Why does it look like I have 8 more teeth? Could this be Tinta's doing? Or is it some kind of blessing? He recalls that Buddha had 40 teeth, and having 40 teeth is said to be a sign of good luck. Perhaps it's a gift from whoever brought him to this world. Shrugging it off, he decides he can ask about it the next time they meet. Lin opens the bookstore, feeling excited. Will customers come today? He wonders. He finds it strange that his neighbor, who's always blasting the news on the radio at this time, is so quiet today. Could there be an issue with his cables again, or is he sick? Lin thinks he should go check. The neighbor, Colin's on his couch, still terrified of the creature he saw. Lin knocks on the door and asks politely, excuse me. Colin screams and Lin asks if something is wrong. I didn't hear you playing the news today. Colin panics on the sofa, thinking Lin noticed something's off. In movies, people who mess up early always pay for it later. That creature must be punishing me because I forced Lin to go out in the rain. Colin shouts back, everything's fine. He tries to turn on the radio again, but when he presses the button, the cursed creature seems to have tampered with it. The news mentions that a wall collapsed on a certain street, causing the death of an adult. The secret tower is investigating the incident. Hearing this, Lin thinks, it seems there was an accident. Is the weather really that bad, or am I worrying too much? He notices Colin seems scared and asks again if he's okay. He adds, you should rest if you want to live a better life. Colin, shaking with fear, interprets this as a warning. Don't do anything stupid, or you'll die. But he's too young to die. Colin thinks Lin knows he called a priest to perform an exorcism here. He panics, believing he shouldn't send the message, but it's already too late. Colin presses send and thinks, now it doesn't matter. It's too late for regrets. He pleads for mercy from the Church of Dome, turns to Lin and trembling says, I'm fine. No need to worry. Thank you for your concern. Lin notices Colin's shaking voice but decides to leave him be. He's sure Colin is hiding something. Maybe I'll buy a gift and visit him later, Lin thinks. As he returns to the store, a new customer enters. She seems young and energetic. Looking around, she asks, is this the bookstore mentioned in my father's documents? Lin extends a hand and asks if there's anything she needs. She looks around thinking, this place seems so normal. Could it really be a Class 1 location? She approaches Lin and asks, are you the owner of this place? Lin confirms, saying she can request anything she wants. Buy a book, borrow one, or just read it here. Still staring at him, she thinks, this is so unimpressive. Did my father make a mistake? She complains aloud, I came here in this rain, risked getting in trouble, and it's just some random guy? This wasn't worth it. Turning to leave, she pauses and says, you said I could have anything I want. Lin, thinking about how impulsive kids are these days, replies, yes, as long as it's not something absurd and within my ability, sure. She slams her hand on the table and says, I want to arm wrestle you. Is that absurd? Lin is baffled. Who goes to a bookstore and instead of buying or borrowing a book, asks for an arm wrestling match? This makes no sense. Still, his instincts tell him something is up. When she entered the store, Lin noticed that she wiped her shoes before stepping inside. This indicates she probably has good manners. Her long, well-maintained hair suggests she comes from a wealthy family. She seems somewhat disappointed, so she must have had certain expectations when she came here. The protagonist wonders why the situation seems to be getting more confusing. A girl comes to the store and wants to arm wrestle me. My bookstore isn't that charming. Could one of my recent clients have mentioned this place? His recent clients were Jishu and Joseph. Then he notices a resemblance between Joseph and the girl and wonders if they're related by blood. The girl, meanwhile, is thinking, why does he keep staring? What a strange presence. She asks, is something wrong? Arm wrestling isn't such a big deal, is it? Lin realizes he's been staring too much and responds, no, it's fine. An arm wrestling match is okay. But first, I need to ask you 2 questions. She asks, what are they? First, are you here because of Joseph? She yells, how do you know that? Lin, who loves guessing, feels validated that he was right. He explains, you two are very similar. Annoyed, she asks, what do you mean by similar? Lin thinks, asterisk, just one look, and it's obvious they're alike. This rebellious attitude and that look, it's clear they're father and daughter asterisk. Second question, why do you want to arm wrestle? She explains that Joseph once taught her that if she's irritated and doesn't know how to act due to restrictions, she should find someone to arm wrestle. Lin asks, does it have to be arm wrestling specifically? She replies, arm wrestling is the easiest way to make your opponent seem weak. If they refuse, they look like cowards. Even better, if they get angry after losing, you can punch them. Lin thinks she needs to calm down and wonders what kind of lessons Joseph is teaching this child. Asterisk, this military mindset is a bit too intense, but what can I expect from a retired soldier with trauma? Of course, he wouldn't be great at raising kids asterisk. Lin asks, so, how do you want to do this? She replies, it'll be simple. Best of 3 wins. Fair, right? Annoyed, Lin thinks this kid probably had an argument with Joseph and came here to vent her frustration, and she chose me as her target. He retracts his earlier thought about her good manners. I need to correct her behavior. He silently apologizes to Joseph but resolves not to go easy on her. It's for her own good. They get into position, clasping each other's hands. She thinks, asterisk, this feels like a hand of an ordinary adult. No aura here. So this is the supposed classic person. I'm not afraid of anyone except my father in arm wrestling. I just hope I don't hurt his hand. I better go easy on him asterisk. 3, 2, 1. Lin wins effortlessly. Her face is frozen in shock. She stands up, exclaiming, "How is this possible?" She glares at Lin and thinks, how did I lose to this guy? She's convinced his strength is average. Looking at his smug face, she thinks, asterisk, he's definitely full of himself now. But I can beat 10 people with strength like his. How could someone barely above the panic level beat me? It doesn't make sense asterisk. Lin, looking at her, says for someone your age to have such strength is really impressive. I even struggled a bit there at the start. She's furious. Struggled? That match ended instantly. He'd won so quickly, and is still being sarcastic? This guy is the worst. She slams the table, declaring, as a knight apprentice, I still have my dignity. I can't accept this loss. She places her hand back on the table, saying, best of 3. This time I'll win. Lin thinks, what kind of kid is this? Is this really arm wrestling, or does she look ready to bite me? Fine, let's do this. Again, 3, 2, 1. She struggles mightily while Lin, with his chin resting on his free hand, thinks, like father, like daughter. But seeing her so weak like this is almost funny. He chuckles and pins her hand down effortlessly. It's over, he says. The girl is on the verge of tears. It's over? No, wait. This doesn't make sense. But Lin is already standing up, brushing off his hands. There you go. Your arm wrestling match is done. Was winning this really so important? If we were fighting with knives, you'd already be dead. You need to choose your battles more wisely. Lin hopes she remembers this moment. She's still young. If not corrected, she might grow up rebellious, challenging everyone to arm wrestling matches. But no matter, Lin decides he needs to do a good deed for this child. Who taught me to be so kind anyway? He wonders. He turns to her and says, I fulfilled your request. Now, why did you come to my store? She admits, I came to get a book. The protagonist questions, why didn't you say so earlier? He then asks, which book do you want? She replies, the one my dad borrowed. I read halfway through, but I couldn't finish it because he took it back. I want a copy so I can read the ending. She looks at Lin with a sad expression, thinking I should have asked for the book right away. Now I don't even know if he'll give it to me. Lin observes her hesitance and concludes she's probably afraid of her father. It seems the little prince is the reason for this conflict. He says, I have it. But why don't you ask Joseph first? She exclaims, because it's kind of a children's book and I'm embarrassed to ask him. He'll know I was reading it and get mad. Lin responds, I don't think he'd be mad. If you show you understand, he'll definitely forgive you. But she yells, he never understands. Joseph is always busy with work. Every day when he comes home, all he does is argue with me. And when I show him the results of my training, he still gets mad, saying I didn't do enough and that he was better at my age. I'll never earn his approval. The protagonist sighs, I see now. Is this the problem? Poor results in training exercises? Why not just impress him instead? In other words, Lin understands the issue. A workaholic father neglects his daughter's upbringing, leading to declining performance. As a retired soldier unable to express himself, Joseph resorts to pushing his daughter harder and harder. But it's clearly not working. This is the struggle of parenthood, Lin thinks. For this situation, The Little Prince is the perfect book. Lin also decides to throw in a math book for her. He adds, as the saying goes, if a child has time to cause trouble, it means they have extra time to study. Moreover, from Lin's basic research, he knows the things children learn in this world are similar to those from his world. These books are perfect, he concludes. You know what? To nurture this girl's knowledge even more, why not add a few more books? It can't hurt, Lin thinks. This world may be different, but children's nightmares are always the same. He stacks the books on the counter. The girl asks, what are these? Lin says, they'll help you impress Joseph. She repeats, impress Joseph? It's impossible. I've been training in combat since I was a kid, and he's never once praised me. All he does is scold me. No matter how hard I try, my achievements are always expected, because I'm Joseph's daughter. Even Joseph compares me to his younger self. He says that at my age, he was already at the panic rank. Meeting his expectations is impossible. Lin tells her, no matter what, your father only wants to see you grow. If you stay honest and work hard, he'll be extremely proud, even if he doesn't say it outright. Lin empathizes with Joseph, explaining, if he sees that you're improving even more, I promise he'll praise you. The girl thinks he acts like he knows my dad so well, but for some reason, his words are convincing. She asks, so you're saying these books will make me stronger and earn my dad's approval, right? But she wonders, what kind of books could do that? Bodybuilding techniques? Secret human control skills? Lin replies, knowledge is power. He adds, this girl learns quickly. You want power? If you study what's in these books and endure the effort, they'll be the key to unlocking that door. She touched the book and was immediately transported to a giant steel gate. She pushed it open and was thrown into the same empty space as her father, where she began to dissolve. Inside the book, Lin tells her not to worry. If she wants to open this door, this is the price she must pay, and her future self will thank her present self. There, she sees the world deconstructing and reforming before her eyes. Lin asserts that this is how she will achieve the only correct answer. Terrified, she closes the book, wondering if she died. She knows this feeling has stirred something fundamental in her soul and replaced it with other things. This must be what everyone calls the pillar of creation, a skeleton key that can open any door. Like a knight, it can directly extract her powers, without any locks or obstacles. This is something only a god could do. How indescribable must someone's level be to achieve something like this? She never even dreamed of something so absurd, yet it simply broke all the limits of her creation and rebuilt her. It's terrifying how this demon completely reshaped her very being. The protagonist then wonders if she's facing some psychological problem. He knows she's bad at math, and if he could at least help her with the basics, it would make a difference. He asks if she's okay and if she needs help. If she has any questions, he can help answer them. It seems you still can't fully comprehend this book. The girl starts thinking that he's trying to reconstruct her being all over again. My God, he's planning something demonic. This is terrifying. The help he's offering definitely doesn't take my feelings into account. Worse is bound to bring unimaginable pain. She feels like she's just a toy in all this. What will happen when it's all over? Lin thinks that if she's still bad at math after this book, he should add Wang Ying to help her even more. Lin then considers giving her some review books from now on. That way, she can improve her academic performance and resolve this family conflict as quickly as possible. The protagonist boasts and declares he's made up his mind. Now he just needs to encourage her because this child definitely needs a little push. He asks what's the problem and wonders if she's still feeling scared about not being able to handle these books. But he says he believes she's a very talented child who deserves a better future. She then asks why. Why does it feel like if she listens to him, she'll embark on a path from which she'll never return? These books are spreading the power of some entity, and this shopkeeper is its herald, its messenger. Lin then says, if you work hard, you will surely gain this power and change everything, including making your father proud. She lets out a trembling sigh and says she doesn't think she has another choice. She'll have to accept it. Then she says, I'm not afraid and really appreciate your generosity. I won't disappoint you. She also apologizes for how she behaved earlier. Lin thinks she's changed far too much. It seems that a math book is still the nemesis of any child. He tells her, all right, fine. Having this attitude is very good. Stay humble and curious. The door of knowledge will always remain open for you. He thanks her and tells her the total cost will be $100. She then walks out into the rain, standing still as she thinks she didn't go to that place just to rent a single book. She ended up buying a bunch, but now it doesn't matter. She says she needs to get home quickly and start studying immediately. The next chapter begins with a dream. Danger, not this opponent, run. It's a dream of Ji Jixu, who wakes up in bed, startled. She remembers the moment she escaped from those two men with a forced teleport. She wakes up in bed, realizes it was a dream, and says she doesn't know what happened to Kai and Max. She wonders, where is this place? At that moment, a girl beside her tells her not to move because her injuries are still quite severe. When she looks to the side, she sees pointed ears and yellow hair and wonders, an elf. Why would there be an elf in Noquim? She doesn't mention that these are chaotic times. She asks if the elf saved her. The elf thinks for a moment and replies, yes. The elf explains that she arrived in Noquim not long ago and the magical fluctuations there were very strange. She continues, saying that elves are very sensitive to mana. Staying here was already torture. But what surprised her most was finding a girl on the ground when she was returning from the market, a mysterious beauty who appeared out of nowhere, covered in the smell of blood. It seemed like someone was hunting her. The elf adds, you were just 10 meters from my house. If I had left you there, whoever was chasing, you would have killed you. Ji Jixu asks if that's why the elf carried her to her house. She responds yes. If they got too close, they would have found you too. But of course, it's better to avoid unnecessary trouble. But don't worry. After all, elves are natural hunters, right? She says, I'm very good at hiding my tracks and any type of presence, so there's no need to thank me. Ji Jixu then says, regardless, you saved my life. I need to return the favor. She asks how long she was unconscious. The elf answers, I found you 5 hours ago. Judging by how fresh the blood was on your clothes, it's probably been no more than 6 hours since you were teleported. Ji Jixu concludes she was very lucky. Teleporting while completely exhausted is very risky. It wouldn't have been surprising if I had died on the spot. But she knows it wasn't luck. It was Mr. Lin. He blessed her with iron will. Her body and mind surely couldn't have endured the effects of continuous teleportation. Truly, Mr. Lin, he can foresee everything. Meanwhile, the protagonist is sneezing back in his shop. As Ji Jixu reflects, she says to herself, regardless, this isn't over yet. I need to overcome all of this. The cursed blood has already healed her wounds, but she overexerted her body and needs some time to recover. She then thinks she first needs to figure out who this elf is. Meanwhile, the elf remarks, your body's regenerative power is extraordinary. It seems you're quite an amazing hunter. Ji Jixu replies, actually no. She introduces herself, saying her name is Ji Jixu. She then asks the elf what brought her to Noquim, noting it's a very deprived area and few elves come there. The elf replies, I'm not sure yet. My name is Doris, as you can see. I'm a pureblood elf. She states she's from the Iris family, the oldest and most sacred family of Azer. Doris says she came to find the lost glory of her family. Ji Jixu immediately recognizes the name. The Iris family? Isn't that the most famous noble family among all elves? She recalls reading about them in stories as a child. According to ancient legends, the glamorous elven kingdom was completely destroyed after King Candela went mad and started attacking everywhere. Some elves signed a contract with a witch, Alpurgis. On a completely dark night, they received a new guardian. From that day forward, whenever they needed the witch's help, they waited for the first day of May to make a pact with Alpurgis. These elves were then blessed by animal spirits and the witch herself. But reflecting on this, Ji Jixu knows the Iris family fell long ago. There's been no news of their history for hundreds of years. She asks Doris if she's here to find the witch who made the pact. Doris answers, yes. She's one of the 4 original witches and the oldest mystery. No one has ever seen her true face. The legends say she's unconscious in a dream world covered in snow and soot, a place with white irises, and a gigantic tree formed from the body of the ancient elder dragon. She's always been called Silver. Jia Jixu is thinking, my god, it's her, the real Silver. The original mutant no one knows anything about. We then see an ancient text describing the 4 witches. Silver, the witch of snow. Life, the witch of fire. Walpurgis, the witch of night. Yggdrasil, the witch of trees. They were the ones who maintained the barrier between the dream world and reality. They protected the world from the creatures that lived in the dream world. But when the elven kingdom disappeared, the witches gradually distanced themselves from one another and fell into slumber in the dream world. Chapter 1. The Origin of Aesir. Ji Jixu had thought it was just a myth. She didn't know that the religion and protection of the witches were real. However, she asks, why is Nokwem, the Society of Truth, always covering this entire region? There's no way the dream world, which might hold one of the true witches, could exist here. Doris agrees and says she doesn't know either, but the great prophet once said, the great Lady Silver, who can control snow, will descend from the dream world to the iron city of Nokwem and take care of the one blessed by the stars. Doris then adds, but you know how these prophecies are. They're all so vague it's impossible to tell what they're really talking about. Ji Jixu agrees and asks, how long you plan to stay? Nokwem is a very dangerous place. It's not safe for an elf. Besides, you must have felt it when you arrived. There's something wrong here. The elf asks if she's talking about the rain. It's nothing significant. My tolerance for hostile environments is very high. Jia Jixu shakes her head. It's not that. She's thinking about the appearance of the magic mirror, which not only has the power to amplify others' abilities but can also create powerful dream beasts. She knows she must keep this a secret, or the situation could spiral completely out of control. She tells the elf, either way it's best if you don't go outside for the next few days. The situation is extremely dangerous. The elf agrees but notes, you seem to be in even more trouble than I am. Why are you warning me about these things? Jia Jixu responds confidently, because I'm a hunter. I look into the abyss and become the abyss. I fight for my life whenever the night fires are lit. Slaying the beasts that disturb the dreams of the innocent is my duty. And a true hunter is never alone. The 2 lock eyes and Doris remarks, you remind me so much of your predecessors. That's exactly what being a hunter is about, from ancient times until now. Jia Jixu feels confused. Why is she talking as if she's seen it herself? Could it be? But at that moment, Doris rushes off, realizing her soup is burning. It seems Ji Jixu was wrong. Doris brings over a fresh bowl of soup, saying, try this. It's fresh. It's a lamb soup I make especially for my patients. Jia Jixu happily takes a sip while Doris confidently declares her culinary skills. The ingredients were delivered not long ago. Doris confidently declares her culinary skills. The ingredients were delivered not long ago. Doris then asks, are you a native hunter from Nokwem? You must know a lot about this place. She adds, if you want to show your gratitude, I hope you can offer some tips on where Lady Silver might be. Ji Jixu, feeling a bit downcast, responds, that would be great, but the truth is, the current situation is very dangerous. I might not be able to help much. However, when the rain stops, you can go to the bookstore on 23rd Street and ask Mr. Lin. He surely has the answer you're looking for. The elf then asks, who is this Mr. Lin? Ji Jixu explains, he is the person to whom I've sworn loyalty, a great man who spreads the gospel to this world. Even though his true form cannot be seen, his omniscience is nearly indescribable. The elf admits that he sounds impressive but counters, to better integrate with human life, I've studied everything about them, including the Society of Mutants and the Society of Truth, and there's no record of someone like him. If such a person existed in Nokwem, wouldn't the Society of Truth have some records about him? Jia Jixu responds, I understand your doubts. I'm just speaking from what I've witnessed. Mr. Lin is the true hermit. He guided and supported me during the darkest moments of my life. He is the reason I can triumph against those enemies today. He's the great figure spreading the gospel to this world. Meanwhile, Mr. Lin continues sneezing back in his shop. The elf, losing hope, says, all right, it seems like there's a deep belief in him. Just as we elves have a deep belief in Lady Silver and the dream of re-establishing the contract made on the night of Walpurgis a millennium ago. Out of nowhere, Jia Jixu begins unbuttoning her coat, saying that Lin gave her all of this. She removes her coat, revealing her body to the elf, who turns completely red. The elf is awestruck by how magnificent Ji Jixu's body looks. Meanwhile, Ji Jixu, startled, remarks how incredible it is that when she was unconscious, her injuries were nearly fatal. Yet now she doesn't even have a scratch. and it's been only 10 minutes since she woke up. After seeing Ji Jixu's body, the elf is almost convinced. She says she's starting to believe everything she's heard about this bookstore and Mr. Lin. It seems he truly is amazing. Ji Jixu affirms, of course he's amazing. He's the most benevolent, pure-hearted, and powerful person I know. This extremely generous talent he gave me was trivial for him. The elf responds, okay. When the rain stops, I'll definitely visit this bookstore and meet this owner you've been talking about. I hope he has the answers to my questions. You probably still need to rest for a few days. You can stay here in the meantime. Also, you need to change your clothes. I prepared a hot bath for you. It's ready. Go relax. Ji Jixu thanks her and apologizes for any trouble, adding, I'm sure I'll get the best possible answers from Mr. Lin. Ji Jixu then heads to the bath thinking she needs to find a way to contact her subordinates, but first, she has to process the entire situation. Either way, she needs to recover her strength as quickly as possible and thank Miss Doris. What a kind elf. Doris, meanwhile, stares at her reflection in the water with a slightly sinister look, thinking, other than the original witches, no one is omniscient. There are only liars with a bit of skill. But if his abilities are terrible, it won't be the client's fault if they get a little disappointed and retaliate. Oh, I just remember I need to deal with the food waste. Apparently, the lamb soup Ji Jixu ate wasn't just any lamb. Elsewhere, individuals associated with the mirror discuss someone who's gone missing. Is there no news of the tracker we sent? The hunter barker, classified as abnormal, is confirmed missing. The man demands, where did he go missing? What did the Scarlatti cult say? They don't know. The man grabs the speaker by the neck, shouting, what do you mean they don't know? Those Scarlatti cult bastards. Don't they understand how serious this is? The man, choking, responds, the tracker was completely erased. Not even magical forensics can figure out what's happening. The man cuts him off and orders continue the investigation. I don't care how many die. Find her. And Charles? What's his condition? He's awake, the subordinate reports. His body appears to be in perfect condition. Murphy from the Scarlatti cult revived him and implanted memories useful to their cause. The man thinks to himself, finally some good news. Charles, according to information left by Ryan's informant, was Wild's favorite disciple. And that was why Ewan killed him. The man wonders when my student returns from hell and wants to kill me. What will I do? He hopes Charles can deliver the energy needed for the emergence of the magic mirror. In a distant, isolated place, a mage with a lock in his hand looks at a giant skeleton and speaks. I finally arrived here. My master, the ancient king of words, the Black Emperor, the dragon's tongue, the last descendant of the giant slayer king, Augustus. My name is Wild, and I've come to request an audience with you. Please bless your pupil with power and witness the greatness of my work. A voice responds, there's no need for magic. You're already my pupil. He could be known as the fossil of the Black Mage. Yet his blood was far from fully decayed or turned to stone. A wave of energy erupted from the crater, and the giant warlock emerged once more, crushing a bone beneath his feet. It has been a long time, my pupil Wild, the giant said, asking what brought him here. Wild replied that he had completed his mission. This is the result, he said, presenting the gargoyle. He sent it to his master through magical circles. The giant observed it and declared it nearly perfect. In that exact moment, destiny made its choice. From then on, Wild was graduated as a pupil in the arts. What does that mean? Wild asked. The response came, from now on, you are an independent black mage. Wild expressed his heartfelt gratitude, declaring it his greatest honor to receive his master's guidance and approval as a black mage. The giant reminded him not to forget his destiny and wished him luck, addressing him as his last pupil. Wild reflected on those words. At the time, they hadn't seemed significant. Now he realized their profound depth. His heart was filled with joy from his teacher's approval and his hopes for the future sword. From that day forward, he reshaped his demeanor to fit the image of a typical black mage, mysterious, powerful, and elegant. Looking back, Wild thought that perhaps the arrogance of his youth had led to a series of fateful events. Later, we see a man showing Wild an orphanage, explaining that this was where orphans lived. The man was surprised that someone as important as Wild was there to adopt a child. Wild, with his black-scaled demeanor, remarked that the number of orphans had been increasing lately and that they couldn't support them all. He expressed gratitude for Wild's presence, giving these children a chance. Wild pointed to one child and asked his name. The man responded that the boy had arrived recently and didn't have a name yet. Wild approached the boy, introducing himself as a black mage, and offered him two choices: stay here and die, or come with him. The boy, crying, begged not to die and asked to be taken away. Wild agreed, declaring that from that moment on, the boy would become his disciple, no longer needing to worry about death, but instead to take pride in his path. Since the child lacked a name, Wild decided it would be Charles from now on, much to the boy's happiness. Thus, Wild acquired his first disciple. The fact that black mages transmitted all their knowledge through language made the bond between master and disciple closer than even familial ties. Years later, he took on another disciple, Yuan. Protecting both of them with his power seemed like no challenge at all, or so he believed at the time. Standing before a broken staff, Wild reflected that perhaps he had favored one of them too much, leaving the other without the careful discipline a black mage required. He realized it was too late. Despite his desire for vengeance against the black mages who killed Charles, he never found the boy's body or soul. Even if he sought Augustus to resurrect him, it would be futile. Weld had lost Charles forever, and this became his eternal sin, one that could never be atoned for. Awaking in the present day, Wilde wondered if it had all been a dream. It felt strange to dream of his teacher. He questioned whether destiny had already made its choices long ago, whether his teacher had foreseen that Wilde would eventually be guided by Lin and had given him the gargoyle for that reason. It seemed Wilde had completed a task assigned to him, and his teacher was satisfied. Now Wilde understood what his teacher truly meant. If I had even half the wisdom of my teachers, I wouldn't have caused my students' death. A thought crept into his mind. Perhaps Charles wasn't truly dead, but had escaped through the cracks of the dream world. Weld felt pathetic for having harbored such petty desires in the past. He had come so far, yet he still suffered from his past, questioning if he was merely waiting for a miracle. Someone then knocked on his door, and he wondered who it could be. This was his most secure hideout in Noquim, and no one had ever discovered it. Only two people knew of this place, himself and Charles. When he opened the door, he was stunned to hear the words, "Professor, it's me. I'm back." He questioned if it was truly Charles. Calling out to him, Wilde asked if he was really there. Charles explained that the black mage Fred had tried to kill him as an act of vengeance against Wilde. Fred failed but caused Charles to fall into a crack in the dream world, not too deep, fortunately. Charles called out, asking if Wilde was there, if he'd been waiting for him, just like before. Charles vividly remembered the orphanage, when Wilde came and rescued him. He didn't want to die and begged for help. Wilde recalled looking at the boy lying on the ground. The older Weld approached, brushing the boy's hair aside to reveal his face. It was Charles. The next chapter began with Lin once again observing himself in the mirror, commenting that something felt off. Although his appearance hadn't changed much, his demeanor was increasingly reminiscent of a motivational speaker. He thought to himself that if he wore priestly robes, people would likely start confessing to him on the spot. It had all started when he suddenly gained 8 extra teeth. He remembered a Buddhist saying about the 32 marks of the Buddha, one of which was having 40 teeth. Beautiful, refined teeth symbolized Buddha's tranquil nature and almost paternal kindness. Having 40 teeth represented the perfect man. Lin had read about it somewhere while collecting folklore stories. Still, he thought of himself as just a bookstore owner. How could he be the perfect man? Deciding to ask Ink when he returned, Lin was interrupted by the sound of the shop's bell. He was surprised considering the store wasn't even open yet. The weather was awful, and he wondered who would visit so early. Opening the door, he recognized old Wilde. Lin instinctively expressed his usual condolences, saying, "Sorry to keep you waiting." "Good morning, Mr. Wilde." Concerned, he asked if Wilde needed something urgent, noting how unusual it was for him to visit so early. "If I had been sleeping, you'd have frozen outside," Lin joked. "At your age, it's dangerous to get sick. Be more careful next time." Lin observed Wilde thoughtfully. He didn't visit often, and it didn't seem like he was there to discuss research. Will typically dived into such topics immediately, seeking tips. Lin wondered if something else had happened in Wilde's life. Since the journey to the store wasn't easy, Lin suggested Wilde warm up with a hot cup of tea. Wilde thanked him for his consideration. Noticing Wilde wasn't there to borrow a book, Lin decided to use the opportunity to chat and deepen their relationship. "Mr. Wilde, have you ever heard the story of the farmer and the snake?" Lin asked. Wilde admitted he hadn't. Lin explained it's a simple but classic tale. During a harsh winter, a snake lay dying, frozen on the roadside. A farmer passed by, saw the snake, and took pity on it. Feeling compassionate, he picked up the snake and warmed it against his chest. The snake, revived by the farmer's warmth, regained its strength. But as soon as it fully recovered, it bit the farmer, following its instinct. Tragically, the farmer died shortly afterward, and thus the story ends. It's just a simple fable. Lin asked Wilde, "Who do you think is the true culprit in this tale, the farmer or the snake?" "The story doesn't deal with justice," Lin continued. "The farmer displayed what we call kindness and still met his death. In dying, he could blame either his own ignorance and weakness or the snake's cruelty and lack of empathy." Old Wilde, uneasy, couldn't help but think Lin was alluding to the return of Charles. Lin clarified his point. The farmer wasn't at fault. He acted out of gratitude. But neither was the snake. It followed its instincts. Lin concluded this isn't a negative perspective. It's neutral, sensitive, and objective. Ultimately, however, the interpretation of the story depends on one's point of view. Lin suggests that Wilde place himself in the shoes of one of the characters in the story. How would he feel if he were the farmer? Wilde, already somewhat agitated, reflects that he would likely have regretted it. Lin interrupts, stating that there's no room for likely. The farmer's greatest regret would undoubtedly have been his failure to understand the snake beforehand. Lin warns that there are many malicious people in the world and one should not trust others so easily. He emphasizes the importance of not being deceived or appearing weak. If someone has no heart, why would they be moved by kindness? The smile of such a person means nothing more than the joy of watching someone lower their guard. Wilde questions whether someone without a heart can even live. He concludes that it's impossible, and that the Charles who returned is not the real Charles. The real Charles is already dead. Lin asks if Wilde has understood the message he was trying to convey. Wilde clenches his fist and affirms that he has. Lin finds this reassuring, noting that Wilde seems a little more relaxed. Conversations with short stories like these often work well, he reflects. Now Lin feels the need to delve into the problems Wilde might be facing. For a man of his age, everyday concerns wouldn't carry much weight. This must be something more complicated, especially given how suddenly Wilde appeared. Only family matters, Lin reasons, could trouble someone like him. As far as Lin knows, Wilde has no family except for his 2 adopted sons, neither of whom treat him well. One son moved abroad and lost contact, while the other seems intent on finding his biological family, a subject Wilde avoids mentioning. The estranged son, it appears, will not return. If he had, Wilde wouldn't have reacted this way, indicating that his concern lies with the first son. Wilde then mentions something about Charles. Before Lin can finish processing, Wilde interrupts, confirming that's exactly it. Charles has returned. Lin, understanding the situation, reflects on the familiar narrative of an old man who lived alone his entire life, only for his son to return and claim his inheritance. Often relatives appear when an elderly person becomes ill, especially those who failed in their lives abroad and come seeking money. Looking at Wilde, Lin warns him, perhaps harshly, that the Charles who returned is not the same one he remembers. Those who return with sweet words to deceive their families are only seeking personal gain. Wilde yearns for the person tied to his happy memories, but Lin questions whether the one who returned truly embodies that person. Lin, acknowledging the cruelty of his words, asks Wilde if he wishes to become that farmer, handing his emotions over to someone cold and venomous, like a snake. Wilde, shaken, admits that Lin is right. He realizes he's been lying to himself. At that moment, a young man enters, calling Wilde master, and saying he's brought something for him. Wilde, exasperated, repeats his instruction to knock before entering and demands respect. Charles exits, leaving Wilde to reflect on the beautiful memories of the past, memories so vivid they almost make him lose his grip on reality. He realizes he had been trapped in an illusory reunion, yearning to relive the past with his disciple. If not for Lin's warning, he might still be confused. Now Wilde understands it's time to let go of what must remain dead. He considers that using his disciple's decaying body would be an insult to him, and acknowledges that everyone must eventually die. Turning to Lin, Wilde admits he already knew this truth, but had wanted to linger in the illusion a bit longer, even knowing it was a lie he told himself. There are certain dreams that will never come true, Wilde admits. Charles is no longer mine. He thanks Lin, recognizing that this is the second time Lin has given him invaluable advice. Now Wilde knows what must be done. If old Wilde is aware of his actions, Lin trusts that Wilde, with his vast knowledge, can handle the situation effectively. Lin understands that this will be difficult for Wilde, but in the end, Charles was his child. If Wilde doesn't act, he will surely regret it even more. Meanwhile, Lin reflects that fortunately he was able to converse with Wilde and provide him with these insights. Otherwise, Wilde might have been deceived by his son, who could have stolen everything from him. Wilde, on the other hand, walks away with an air of mystery, admitting his foolishness but vowing to resolve the situation as soon as possible. He assures himself that he will not give Charles a second chance. Wilde, deep in thought, remembered the upcoming meeting where he intended to spread Lin's words. Lin, somewhat apprehensive, expressed his anxiety over this plan. Meanwhile, at Wilde's home, Charles' body controlled by the Scarlet Group's mage reported that the mission was progressing smoothly. Charles noted that he had already gained Wilde's trust with little effort and would soon learn the rest of the black magic spells. Hearing Wilde's return, the mage cut off his connection. Charles asked, "Professor, have you returned?" Wilde stared at him and requested, "Charles, fetch my sacrificial knife. You know where it is. Do you want to test one of your spells?" Charles inquired. "Yes," Wilde replied. "I have an important spell to test and need to make some preparations. Go on. I'll need your help afterward." "Okay," Charles said, agreeing to do his best. The young man went to retrieve the knife, thinking about how it seemed Wilde would grant him one of his special spells. He believed the mission was nearing its completion. Charles planned to use Wilde's own hand to kill him once he had extracted everything useful. But before he could act, the knife plunged into his skull. "Master," was the last thing he managed to say before collapsing. "Rest in peace, my child," Wilde murmured as death brought its own form of peace. Examining the power that had been used on the body, Wilde recognized it as the Coffin of Eternal Rest, a signature of Murphy's magic. At the Scarlet Cult's base, a woman was praying, a pulpit marked with a bleeding pentagram. As Charles' body perished, she was startled and exclaimed, "Wilde, how is this possible?" An explosion had seemingly destroyed everything. Cult members rushed to her aid, asking what had happened. One asked, "Miss Murphy, are you all right? The entire secret prayer hall has been ruined." Murphy, regaining her composure, responded, "I'm alive, but I don't know what happened. Why did Wilde go mad and cause such destruction? I can't recall this spell having such a severe backlash. What went wrong?" She began explaining that the Coffin of Eternal Rest was a magical artifact of unimaginable power capable of resurrecting the dead. Its dangerous and forbidden nature made it infamous. Her interlocutor suggested that if she used the coffin to resurrect Charles, Wilde's disciple, she could manipulate him to gain all of Wilde's secret spells. Murphy fixed her gaze on the man, commenting that he seemed unusually knowledgeable about her artifact and questioning whether she should be surprised. Reflecting aloud, she noted that renowned teachers often had outstanding disciples. The man introduced himself as Yuan, the second disciple of the faceless black scale. He humbly claimed that Murphy overestimated him as he was no longer Wild's disciple. Yuan requested that Murphy ensure the safety of his men, but she interrupted, stating that he misunderstood her position. She reminded him of Wild's favoritism toward his first disciple, Charles, and pointed out that Yuan had killed Charles out of narcissism and jealousy. "This has nothing to do with me," Murphy declared. She then asked why she should make an enemy of such a destructive mage. Yuan, exuding confidence, replied that the mirror's birth required life force. Despite Will's destructive nature, he had already been defeated by Joseph, leaving Charles as his weak point. If the plan works, Yuan proposed, it would be perfect to use Charles' life force to power the mirror. Murphy acknowledged that the life force of a destructive black mage would indeed be rare and immensely valuable. With Weld in hiding after nearly dying in battle, this might be a unique opportunity. She agreed to assist provided the plan was executed flawlessly. However, the situation had now spiraled out of control. Murphy, injured and enraged, reflected on how smoothly the plan had been progressing. Weld, gone for only half an hour, had returned and killed Charles, whom he treated like a son, without hesitation. What happened during that brief time, she wondered. Desperate, Murphy resolved to use magic to reopen the coffin of eternal rest, fully aware that doing so would cost her a portion of her soul. The protagonist was enjoying a peaceful moment in his bookstore, though he couldn't shake a tinge of sadness. It was rare for the store to have no customers, a situation that left him feeling a bit out of sorts. Deciding to take advantage of the calm, he picked up a classic novel and began analyzing a dream he recently had. But before he could immerse himself, the bell above the door rang, pulling him back to reality. He sighed, wondering what was happening lately. Customers seemed to be arriving one after another. Although he wasn't overwhelmed with work, it had been long enough since he had time to properly enjoy his books. Still, he couldn't refuse the visitors. It was a bookstore after all. Welcoming the new guest, he asked warmly, "Are you here to rent, buy, or just browse?" He encouraged the girl to ask any questions, assuring her he was ready to help, provided her inquiries fell within the realm of his business. It was undeniable. With her attire, she resembled a perfect forest elf. He speculated whether she might be a professional cosplayer, one of those legendary, extraordinarily realistic performers. A wave of nostalgia washed over him as he remembered his homeland, where 9 films and games had popularized cosplay. He never expected to encounter someone of such skill in Nokwim. For a brief moment, he almost believed she was a real elf. The young woman's beauty as she stepped into the bookstore out of the rain was captivating. He thought she seemed to perfectly understand the atmosphere of the store, and her visit felt singular and almost otherworldly. Perhaps it wasn't mere coincidence that his subconscious had conjured an elf in his recent dream. The girl's pointed ears were authentic, and he felt a flicker of excitement as he admired them. She was truly enchanting. But then he noticed her intense gaze. He wondered if she was aware that he was the omniscient owner of the bookstore. She, on the other hand, thought he seemed unsurprised to see her. She decided to assume it was because he already knew she was coming. Despite this, he seemed neither shocked nor overly calm. Instead, the feelings emanating from him were ones of curiosity, nostalgia, and appreciation. This kind of deep emotional connection, she mused, could only be felt by beings who had lived for a very long time. Deciding to test her suspicions, she used mana to analyze the entire bookstore. Was this young man truly as ordinary as he appeared? A strange sensation overtook her. She had no doubt. This man possessed 40 teeth, something that completely defied human anatomy. This revelation led her to conclude he wasn't human, but rather something she couldn't quite define. She began speaking, stating that as long as things remained within the scope of his business, everything was fine. However, if he truly was omniscient and omnipotent, perhaps that was the price he paid, an existence confined to a bookstore. A creature unknown with a human appearance and a heart that had endured countless ages, wielding terrifying power yet living a mundane life. The nostalgia he expressed, she thought, might mean he knew someone from the Iris family. As her mana returned to her, she sensed the aura of the true witch, Miss Silver. The spirits of the Iris family were responding. The dream realm, her dream, was present here. She was certain. Miss Silver lay unconscious on the second floor of the bookstore. The faint aura of the dream world confirmed that the powerful witch had descended and blessed someone. Naturally, the only person who could have received such a blessing was the young bookstore owner. This led her to wonder if he was the one mentioned in the prophecy, the favorite of the stars. Was this the destiny orchestrated by Miss Silver, drawing her to him? Yet another question arose. Had the witch chosen not to reestablish a contract with the Iris family? If she succeeded, the entire family would be blessed, but failure would make her a true sinner. She needed to proceed with caution. Finally, she introduced herself to the protagonist. "My name is Doris," she said, "and I heard about you and your bookstore through Miss Ji's Jitsu. She mentioned that you helped one of them solve their problems and spoke of you as if you were a god." Lin, surprised, responded that he hadn't realized Ji's Jitsu held him in such high regard. He thought his life teacher demeanor must have left a positive impression. However, he felt embarrassed upon realizing her admiration stemmed from his ability to see through a scoundrel's deception. That kind of hero worship wasn't something he sought. He believed it was crucial for people to learn to act independently without relying excessively on others. Turning to Doris, he said, I'm not as impressive as a god. Don't you think you've exaggerated a bit? I'm just a regular bookstore owner. The elf smiled and replied, You're very humble. She reflected that his apparent omniscience and omnipotence came from the fact that he protected others, which was why she saw him as a god. Doris mentioned that someone else had spoken of him with great admiration. After hearing about her family's troubles, that person had suggested she seek his help. Internally, she thought, if he's the favorite of Lady Silver, then that practically makes him a god. She recalled that Lady Jixu, being the daughter of a resource merchant, naturally had connections with other noble families. In Noquim, besides the regular and lower districts where most people lived, there was the central district, home to the wealthy and powerful, including all the ancient and noble families. Lin deduced that his client was a noble, which explained her exceptional cosplay. He noted that his recent clients all came via recommendations from previous ones. This showed that his kindness was yielding positive results for the business. Turning back to Doris, he asked her to explain her problem. Doris hesitated briefly, then observed the situation. She felt that Lady Silver had given a signal, manifesting the dream world and leaving the judgment to the chosen one. She began, I come from an ancient family that once carried the glory bestowed by Iris, but after losing our faith's guidance, we fell into decline. My wish is to restore my family's former glory and bring Iris back to life. For that, I need your help. Lin considered her request to rebuild her family's legacy, relating it to his past work as a researcher of folklore and legends. He deduced that her problem likely revolved around reclaiming the recognition of her family emblem, which had lost its prestige in the city. Realizing this would require rediscovering and promoting the emblem's true significance, Lin knew he'd have to employ his expertise in ancient civilizations. However, he also understood the importance of credibility and professionalism, especially to prevent anyone from deceiving Doris. This isn't just some life advice, he said, informing her that the service would come at a cost. I understand your problem. It's not extraordinary, but it does require careful handling. As he finished speaking, a brilliant light burst from outside the bookstore. Lin noticed the light seemed deliberately directed at his establishment, raising concerns about its source. For a moment, he imagined police cars arriving, demanding he exit with his hands behind his back. But he quickly dismissed the thought and decided to address the situation outside. He considered testing whether ink would appear to assist, but before he could act, Doris, visibly irritated, offered to handle the intruders herself. They all seemed angrier than Lin, a reaction he found understandable since the interruption affected the help she was about to receive. Her noble status suggested she was familiar with such disruptions, and she expressed indignation at the audacity of anyone daring to target the bookstore. Lin, on the other hand, remained calm, though he suspected the unwanted visitors were there because of him. The directed light was blatantly disrespectful, but Doris appeared unconcerned about the potential danger to herself. Lin observed her resolve and decided to let her handle the situation for now, trusting that her experience as a noble could provide insights into the nature of the disturbance. Lin, as a responsible shopkeeper, didn't want to involve his clients in personal problems. Looking at Doris, he calmly asked, Are you sure you can handle this? I don't want you to put yourself at risk because of me. He suggested that he could use his persuasion skills to resolve the issue peacefully before dealing with the customers being inconvenienced. Doris, however, firmly insisted there's no need for that. Even though the intruders were numerous and their leaders seemed problematic, she didn't mind exposing her identity. She had accepted the task and promised that no one would lay a finger on him, eager for his approval and honored to deal with these problems. Lin realized he was in a delicate situation, as refusing her help would be tantamount to humiliating her entire family. Recognizing that he didn't completely understand her yet, he ultimately agreed, asking only that she be careful. She thanked him, and as she stepped away, reflected on Lin's words. When she first asked for his help, he had said it wouldn't be a big deal, suggesting that he might have connections with Lady Silver. When the enemies appeared, he mentioned new customers, leading her to deduce that if she resolved this situation, he would help with the Iris family's problem. The blinding light's source was a few meters in front of the store in the skies at an elevation of 1,437 meters above the clouds. There, a group of about 30 mages, including Murphy with her coffin, was sucking the entire city into a bubble. A subordinate informed her that the secret tower had been alerted and would arrive in 10 minutes. Murphy, however, had already completed the Nova Death Ray and ordered preparations for the teleportation ritual. The subordinates agreed, but Murphy was planning to target the bookstore with the Nova Death Ray, something not even Wild at his peak could have survived. Determined to make an example of what happens to those who cross Murphy of Noquim, she prepared to unleash it. The elf, observing from the front of the store, recognized the insanity of the black mages and the danger of the Nova Death Ray, especially at such close range. However, the bookstore owner's calm demeanor made her think that perhaps such destructive power was trivial to him, and that this might just be a test of her trustworthiness. She was determined to pass the test and ensure Iris' rebirth. The next chapter revealed Murphy's past as a sister of the Plague Church, where she prayed daily to the god and for the dead. Day after day, year after year, nothing should have changed, until the moment of her death. One day, her life spiraled into hell with no way back when a priest violently attacked her. She didn't understand why this man, who was supposed to be sacred, acted like a malicious beast. In her desperation, all she could do was pray for salvation. At that moment, a chain pierced through the attacker's head. Overcome with emotion and confusion at her salvation, she realized that the tool that had saved her had emerged from the statue of the god she always prayed to. From that day on, she believed it was a divine gift, the coffin of eternal rest, a magical artifact with powers of resurrection and death. With the power of the coffin, Murphy founded the Scarlet Cult and established her own center of power. Her followers reached the destructive rank alongside her as a black mage. The use of these powers made her increasingly arrogant, leading her to believe she was chosen by God and that all others were mere mortals. That's why, when Wild severed her connection to the power, she became furious. Back in the present, Murphy didn't care if the secret tower discovered her actions. She was determined to send that bookstore to hell, questioning who the owner thought he was to interfere with her plans. The Nova Ray would consume 80% of her ether, but she deemed it worth it to teach him a lesson. Only someone indescribable could survive such an attack, and unfortunately for him, he wasn't one of the few indescribable beings of Nokwim. He would regret going against her. That would be the price to pay. The ray cut through the skies, destroying everything in its path as it headed toward the bookstore. The mages watched in awe at Murphy's power, while she thought to herself that the place would soon cease to exist. Doris stepped out of the store and faced the ray head-on. Murphy, surprised to see an elf there, watched as Doris drew a staff topped with an iris. Murphy instantly recognized it as a pure iris. Doris struck the staff against the ground and invoked, "Lady Silver, please bless the Iris House with the light of victory." With her authority as an elven sage, she commanded nature to protect the bookstore. Branches erupted from the ground, intercepting and blocking Murphy's destructive spell. The mages were dumbfounded, questioning how anything could stop such a powerful attack. Murphy, however, realized that the elf was an extremely powerful destructive mage from the Iris family, the great sage Doris. The spell struck the massive tree without causing any damage. Doris began her second counterattack, transforming her staff into a bow. She proclaimed, "My lady is cloaked in ice, wielding a great bow and treading upon endless mountains." She asked her lady to guide her hands, vowing to repay her generosity with victory. Doris prophesied that her arrow would destroy the enemy's escape route. Murphy immediately understood that the target was the teleportation gate. Despite the mage's desperate attempts at defense, the explosion was inevitable, annihilating any means of escape. Murphy realized there was no way out, acknowledged that her strength was equal to the elf's. With the secret society's arrival imminent, Murphy declared she had no other choice. Forced into desperation, Murphy commanded her followers to become her sustenance. The mages around her willingly allowed themselves to be absorbed, expressing joy at serving their Lady Murphy. After consuming all of them, Murphy summoned a dream beast called Shantok. She then revealed that the coffin of eternal rest possessed the power to resurrect even beasts. Murphy declared that Shantok was the perfect species, threatening to kill Doris and use her energy to open the dream world and eliminate the bookstore owner. Doris, unfazed, mocked Murphy, calling her uncultured and lacking elegance, and asked if she wasn't aware of the terrifying nature of dream beasts. Murphy, enraged, retorted, asking if Doris couldn't see the terrible beast before her. Doris, maintaining her calm, stated that words were unnecessary and that Murphy would understand in a few seconds. She cast a spell called Dispel and revealed that the Iris family was protected by the primordial witch who ruled the dream world. Doris questioned how Murphy dared to use a dream beast against them. Murphy, incredulous, pressed forward regardless. Doris suggested that Murphy might have misunderstood something about the beasts summoned from the dream world. Confused by Doris' expression, Murphy realized there was something important she didn't know. Doris then summoned a night gaunt, the natural nemesis of Shantok, which swiftly defeated Murphy. Doris remarked, "Perhaps in your next life, you'll remember that nothing is certain unless the prophet says so." Inside the store, Lin sipped his coffee, feeling the ground tremble. He wondered if it was an earthquake, as natural disasters were frequent in Nokwim. Concerned about Doris and unable to see anything through the thick, dark fog, Lin considered stepping outside to check. Doris entered the store, apologizing for the delay and asking if they could resume from where they left off. Lin noticed her pale face and dry clothes, commenting that the rain had muffled the external sounds. Doris reflected on the situation, muffled the sounds outside. She was certain she had used a perfect silencing spell to ensure no disturbances for him. Additionally, she had even invoked the sanctuary of the forest to block all attacks. It was impossible for him not to know this, and he claimed it was all due to the rain. Was there some hidden meaning behind his words? Was he suggesting that Nokwim's troubles were caused by the rain itself? The hunters, the mages, the secret tower, and the Society of Truth were all entangled in this chaos. Putting it all into perspective, compared to two mages fighting, it really seemed like a drop in the ocean. The sound of their battle was insignificant. She wondered if this was how the world appeared through the eyes of someone powerful. She had no idea how Lin was connected to the rain, but whatever the cause, it was enough for a destructive mage to ignore all rules and attack him. She feared that this could lead to even worse consequences. Would those consequences be good or bad? Turning to Lin, she assured him, "Fortunately, there was no disturbance, and I guarantee they won't trouble you again." Lin, in turn, thanked her, simply saying, "Thank you." He noted that the weather in Nokwim was worsening by the day, and he wondered when things would improve. On the other hand, the chaos brought more customers to his store. Still, he clarified that he didn't take joy in others' misfortune. He simply preferred the earlier times with fewer customers and a more peaceful life, where he could take a bath and read a book when bored. Lin believed that the cursed weather would soon come to an end. If everyone worked together, the situation would certainly improve. Doris thought to herself, as I suspected, everything is under his control. He seemed to laugh sarcastically at the situation, claiming to miss the calm life. Could this all be part of his plan? Wait, was all this happening simply because he was tired of reading books and wanted more customers? Miss Silver felt fear, but perhaps her favorite person had a terrible personality. Lin let out a thoughtful observing that she didn't seem to be doing well. How could he have forgotten the rain and wind outside? The protagonist expressed his dissatisfaction with the harmony of the environment, mentioning that he should have acted earlier. He felt the need to offer his guest a warm cup of tea. He believed he could do better and earn the trust of his client, which was the real profit he sought. Lin suggested a change of topic, and thanks to his initiative, they could now enjoy tea and relax a little. She, in turn, expressed her gratitude, thinking that she needed to be polite and not upset him, as he held the fate of her and her family in his hands. She tasted the tea, her heart racing, and praised its flavor, stating that it was exactly the kind of tea elves appreciated, unlike the typical taste preferred by humans in Noquim. She was impressed by his attention to detail, even though in truth he had simply prepared a basic green tea. While she was battling the elves outside, he had been busy making the tea. The battle, as she suspected, was merely a test, and it seemed everything was still under control. Thanking him for the tea, she asked if they could continue their conversation from where they left off. The protagonist immediately responded that he could assist her with her problem, but warned that it wouldn't be easy. The journey to regain recognition would be long and challenging. He committed to doing his best, but emphasized that most of the success would depend on her collaboration. His plan was to highlight the difficulty of the task so he could charge more by the end of the process. Lin understood that the task would be arduous since honor and knowledge were crucial for the survival of a noble house. She mentioned being from the Iris family, which once enjoyed great renown. To return to that status, no mistakes could be made, and everyone needed to focus entirely on this goal. Thus, the responsibility fell squarely on her. Fortunately, Lin had read similar stories before. In his world, a study of generational symbols was almost non-existent. After gaining access to a society that held such information, he had written a book titled Signs and Symbols, compiling his research on family crests. He then recommended that she read the book carefully, as it would be of immense value in the future. Though the task was not simple, she had a chance to restore her family's former glory. However, as she touched the book, an intense light burst forth, revealing a like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.